Return to the Tomb of Horrors, Part 3. The City That Waits. On the world of Rheneas there was a city called Moil. Moil was built on the surface of its world, and it daily saw the light of the sun as every normal city did. The uplifting light of the sun, unfortunately, was not sufficient to keep the citizens from dark pursuits. The Moilians were of an evil bent, and gave their worship to a powerful Tanari lord they knew as Orcus. As is the way of such things, the citizens of Moil reaped only a bitter reward for their patronage to this chaotic lord. In the passage of time, the Moilians allowed their piety to fail in favor of less bloodthirsty deities. Predictably, Orcus was wroth. In horrible but unlooked-for vengeance, the entity cast what initially seemed a mild curse over Moil. Its inhabitants fell into an enchanted sleep that could only be broken by the dawning of the sun. Orcus then physically removed the city from its natural site and transformed it into a nightmarish, lightless demiplane of its own, assuring that the sun would never again shine upon its tall towers. Having completed this deed, Orcus dubbed the demiplane anew as the City That Waits. Over time, the slumbering Moilians all perished in their dark sleep, leaving the place strewn with unquiet dead and dangerous dreams. But Orcus came never again to the city, for he was slain by Kyriansele, drow goddess of vengeance, and passed from the knowledge of man and god alike. Centuries passed, and during that time Assiraak's thoughts returned time after time to the City That Waits. He had discovered its existence through his researches while yet a breathing man. With its creator gone and its inhabitants dead, Assiraak claimed it as his own. As he had hoped, the city was the perfect conduit for his evil designs. Its unique nature would let it serve as an anchor for the construction of his true stronghold on the negative energy plane itself. He utilized the unquiet dead as an undead workforce to build his fortress of conclusion. It was a massive effort, and most of the Moilians were expended in the construction. Few Moilians now reside in the city itself. The architecture of the city was warped when it was transformed into a demiplane. The city's thin towers now appear to rise from the abyssal depths of a vast pit. The sides of the pit are bounded in writhing black fog, and if one could visually penetrate the darkness of the pit's depths, so too are the lowest portions of the pit. In fact, the towers are magically erected on this unstable mist. The writhing black fog defines the boundary between the City That Waits and a one-way, non-focused link to the negative energy plane. Any being venturing into the black fog, either deliberately or after a long fall from a tower or span, is thrust into the depths of the negative energy plane and is immediately subject to its effects. See page 115. Any being flying up to the lightning-lit clouds above is subject to being hit by a bolt of electricity, 45% chance per round spent in the clouds, for 10d6 points of damage, no saving throw. The clouds above gradually thin to the black mists that encompass the sides and bottom of the City That Waits, and traveling into them thrusts one into the negative energy plane as well. Among other evil remnants that still haunt the city, the worst by far is the vestage. See the Maps and Monsters book. The vestige constantly roams the chambers, bridges, and open spaces of the City That Waits, looking for something to vent its malice upon. Every 4 hours the PCs spend in the city, they run a 20% chance of being found by the vestige. See the Area 15.5 description, where the PCs will always find the vestige to set the stage for this monster's appearance. Such is the power and hate of the creature that it is probably best that the PCs just run if they encounter it. Even Assiraak flinched at dealing with this horrible monster. But Assiraak was able to use the vestige as an unwitting guardian of his puzzles. If the PCs can get enough distance between it and themselves, 1,000 feet or more, the creature loses track of them for the time being. Because the City That Waits is so close to the negative energy plane, the effects of the Dark Intrusion are even more pronounced than in the Tomb of Horrors or the Black Academy. The effects listed below supersede Dark Intrusion effects previously described. The effects in the City That Waits are as follows. Point. All undead are turned as if 4 categories higher on the Turning Undead table. Point. Any spells cast within the city that fall within the School of Necromancy have their casting times reduced by 4 units, minimum casting time of 1. Point. Any living creature of rat size or larger that is slain has an 80% chance of spontaneously animating within 1d3 rounds as an undead zombie with the same hit dice as the original creature. Point. Healing spells are only 75% effective, round up, while within the confines of the city that waits. For example, a healing spell that would normally heal 20 points of damage only heals 15 points here. Point: it is supernaturally cold within the city. Unless the PCs are specifically dressed for cold weather, furs, gloves, caps, etc., they must make a constitution check with a -4 penalty after every 6 hours they spend here. Failure costs the character 1 hit point. If your campaign postulates that infravision works by detecting infrared radiation, then infravision is almost useless here. Everything is saturated with the numbing cold, and most of the creatures are undead that don't radiate any infrared energy. One of the physical qualities salvaged from Moil's original incarnation, besides gravity, was discrete compass verifiable direction. Thus, PCs will be able to make their way about the demiplane using such directional references as north, south, east, and west. Area 1. Arrival Point. Box text. A vast roof of roiling black clouds hangs above, periodically limned with silent electrical discharges of unimaginable magnitude. Spread out below this ominous skyscrape is a Promethean city of slender towers, thrusting up from an impenetrable abyss of darkness below. The tower bases are hidden in absolute blackness, almost as if they were erected upon the darkness itself. The heights of the spires are rounded, sleek, and enigmatic constructions of stone and metal, repeatedly illuminated by the actinic lightning play above. Thin spans and fragile bridges connect many of the slender towers at various levels in a maze-like array. You stand upon one of these spans of black metal, equidistantly suspended between 3 unlighted spires. An obelisk of rusted iron stands before you, bearing a lengthy inscription. A thin layer of hoarfrost coats absolutely everything, and your breath steams in the frigid air. End box text. Display illustration 21. Any being successfully navigating the mouth of the Fiend, Area 6 from the Tomb of Horrors, arrives on this bridge near the iron obelisk. Unfortunately, from this point there is no way back the way they came. Once the PCs have entered the city, there is no way out but to press on through. The PC's only obvious routes are along the bridge in one of the 3 directions. Of course, they may attempt to fly to a nearby random tower, however, from their current vantage there is nothing to distinguish one tower from the next. Characters who travel more than 500 feet through the air at one time draw the attention of a score of negative fundamentals that roost atop the towers and beneath the bridges. Negative fundamentals are described in the Maps and Monsters book. The following rhyme is inscribed upon the obelisk. Box text. Assiraak is impressed. You now stand under the darkling sky that most never dreamt of. Your only path is forward through this crumbling demiplane of broken piety. The journey shall task you to your moral limits. However, this verse may help you on your way to me within the void, where you shall receive a fitting prize for your persistence. This city that waits was the city of Moil, where dreams truly died, but bodies yet toil. In slumber unrelenting they lie yet in wait, biding their time to seal your fate. Discovery of the void and my fortress within demands exploration through peril again. Find amid towers degenerate the single key, and resolve the dilemma of problems 3. Beard the brine dragon in its frozen hollow, remove the key, avoid its starved swallow. Beneath webs of glowing emerald hangs a riddle box ripened to be solved. The dark weaver endures the cold in her lair, grasps your fate with consummate care. The lifeless dream that marks the crime is the vestige that guards the sand of time. Each resolution removes one obstacle. For those who peruse this written oracle. That doesn't rhyme. The phantom released flies you in fashion to my inevitable fortress of conclusion. Also doesn't rhyme. End of box text. As was true in the original tomb, Assiraak has provided yet another riddle to assist intruders navigating his own territory. To those who give this any thought, it may seem a strange contradiction to lethally trap the area and then provide helpful hints to make the route navigable. However, there is no real contradiction here. Assiraak is seeking to lure worthy souls to himself. Those who are not worthy are killed by the intervening traps. In a lethal weeding out process, only the best of the best finally make it to the demi-lich in the original tomb, and even fewer, and therefore fitter, reach Assiraak's true manifestation in the Fortress of Conclusion. Assiraak requires these powerful souls to forward his own diabolical machinations on the plane of negative energy. Each high-level soul he's able to devour brings him that much closer to his final goal, which is described in detail under the apotheosis in the Fortress of Conclusion. There are many more towers in the city than those shown on the city maps. Areas shown on the maps are the only ones connected by bridges. Towers, unconnected to bridges, are empty and silent and do not come into play in this adventure. The bridge upon which the party stands is 10 feet wide and without railings. As in many other places in the city, combatants upon a bridge or ledge must be careful not to make a misstep, else they risk a long fall into the black mists below. The bridges are constructed at 3 levels, each approximately 20 feet below the previous. On the City That Waits map, map 3, the different levels are distinguished by color. Yellow indicates the highest, green the middle, and blue the lowest. Stat block: 2d10 negative fundamentals. Area 2, the Tower of Mourning. Many of the areas within the Tower of Mourning are empty of any significant detail. Only the areas that are specifically keyed on the map contain encounters or information pertinent to the party. Assume that unnumbered rooms contain nothing but frost-covered stone rubble and debris. Every door in the tower is similarly covered with a layer of frost, and a successful open doors roll is necessary to open each door for the first time. Only a single level of this tower is detailed on the map. No matter how much the PCs look, they do not discover entrances to possible levels above or below. If the party somehow penetrates into these areas, they quickly determine that these other levels are utterly demolished. Only a hollow shell showing small escarpments where the old levels once existed can be seen. It is only the magic of Assiraak that maintains the tower levels detailed in this text. Without his intervention, all the bridges and levels would long since have fallen. The windows shown on the Tower of Mourning map are 10 by 10 feet and are open to the outer city. Area 2.1, Arch of the Curse. Box text. This end of the bridge leads into an arched opening on the sleek side of a tower of gray stone and metal. The lintel of the arch is skillfully carved with what appears to be a fanciful rendered sunrise, although the layer of frost covering the carving makes it difficult to see for certain. No light or sound is forthcoming from beyond this portal. End box text. Those who rub away the frost to get a better look at the arch carving somehow get the definite feeling that the lintel depicts a sunset rather than a sunrise. Those viewing the sunset must make a successful saving throw versus spells at a -5 penalty, or be afflicted with the same enchanted sleep that originally affected the inhabitants of the city. If a remove curse spell is cast upon the sleeping PC, he or she is allowed one more saving throw versus spells, again at a -5 penalty. If this saving throw is successful, the PC wakes. If it's unsuccessful, nothing but the rising of the sun can restore them to wakefulness. In other words, the only way to save the PC is to bring them out of the tomb into the normal world and wait for the next sunrise. Wish spells and similar magics are ineffective. Area 2.2, Chamber of Days. Box text. The wall opposite the door curves around in a great semicircle. The intervening floor space is empty, but the curved wall is broken up into 7 panels that run from floor to ceiling. The panels are clear of the frost that seems to cover every other surface in this forsaken city. The panels appear to depict scenes, each different from the next. Frost-covered runes are etched into the floor before the panels in a strange language. End box text. Display illustration number 22. The scenes depicted in this chamber directly affect the outcome of the party's possible encounter in room 2.7 of this tower. Each panel depicts a different scene from a particular Moilian day or night. The slightest touch makes a panel glow with a vivid radiance. If any other panel is touched, the first dims and the new panel then begins to glow in the same way. The DM should take note of which panels the party leaves lighted, if any, when they leave this chamber, so that the effects in room 2.7 later on can be determined. The runes before the panels can be plainly made out if the frost is removed. However, the revealed message is inscribed in Moilian that is extremely unlikely any of the party can read. If an appropriate spell or effect allows for translation, the runes read, "Manifest the power of the Wand of Days." A single element remains the same from panel to panel, a road. The road is connected from panel to panel, but the other elements of each picture vary. The time of day is readily apparent in each panel by the position of the blazing disk of the sun. The panels depict, from left to right, a path through a dark pre-dawn forest, a road through a grassy prairie at sunrise, a steep mountain pass in the morning, a path along a roaring river at noon, a road through wide city gates in the late afternoon, a path through a tended garden at sunset, and a bridge over a chasm of darkness in dim twilight. Area 2.3, Chamber of Lessons. Box text. Frost covers every available surface in this chamber save one place near the center. A patch of bare stone is plainly discernible amidst the icy glaze. The bare patch has the unmistakable shape of a sprawled humanoid body. Bits of ice and cracks in the frost attest to the fact that whoever or whatever once laid immobile upon this floor has risen and left its state of chilly repose. End box text. Display illustration number 23. The bare patch in the frost marks the place where a Moilian zombie long lay quiescent until called by Assiraak to labor in his fortress of conclusion. No threat remains to the party now, although the bare patch should give them some food for thought. The curvature of the northern wall represents the central tower support. It is solid and contains no internal spaces. Area 2.4, Chamber of Attractions. Box text. This room was apparently once filled with statuary of all shapes and sizes. Time or some other more destructive force has toppled them all upon the ground. Only shattered stone now remains, covering the floor in a layer of crumbled and broken stone torsos, heads, and limbs. The omnipresent rime of ice coats everything. End box text. An examination of the smashed sculptures reveals them to have been life-size human figures in various artful poses. Anyone doing a thorough search of the room, or anyone coming within 20 feet of the eastern wall, spies a frost-covered statue that apparently was not smashed when it tumbled to the ground in whatever long-ago cataclysm felled its neighbors. In actuality, the figure is a quiescent Moilian zombie. If any of the party move within 20-foot range of its draining ability, they immediately become aware of its existence. Once it has drained even a single hit point, it pulls itself free from the ice with appropriate sound effects of crackling and attacks the party. If they overcome this creature and search its body, they find it wears nondescript robes, sandals, and a headband. The headband is non-magical. It depicts the carving of the rising sun on a metal disc. This headband possesses no intrinsic power, but it does serve to activate one of the powers of the seat of the long view in room 2.5. In a pouch at the creature's side can be found 46 platinum pieces of strange mintage. The coins show a city of tall towers on one side, and on the other a depiction of what is perhaps the head of an evil ram. Stat block, Moilian zombie. Area 2.5, Chamber of Observation. Box text. This chamber is mostly empty, save for a large throne-like stone chair facing a 10 by 10 foot opening in the western wall, a window to the outer darkness. The back of the chair is enruined with a bas-relief of the rising sun, just visible through the obscuring coat of ice. End box text. The stone chair was once known as the Seat of the Long View by the inhabitants of Moil, and was constructed by the once living Moilians who belonged to the sect of the Morning Sun. It was this sect, more than any other influence, that was responsible for the city as a whole, turning from the worship of Orcus. It was unfortunate that Orcus based his curse on the sect's object of contemplation, the rising sun. The Tanari Lord decreed that if the living Moilians believed the sun was their salvation, let it also be true in fact. Thus died Moil, waiting for the sun. Anyone sitting in the seat gets a good view of the skyline of the Promethean city that waits, where the intermittent electrical discharges in the clouds make the tower tops gleam with reflected light. If the sitting PC is also wearing one of the headbands of mourning, such as described in room 2.4, the first metal disc and then the PC him or herself lights up for just an instant, as if it and the character were illuminated by the first rays of the morning sun. The seated wearer is suddenly invigorated, as if he or she had just awakened from a full night of good sleep. The character regains 3 hit points, if wounded, and spellcasters gain the freshness of mind to memorize new spells, even if they have not slept normally for many hours. The seat only functions this way once for each PC in a 24-hour period. The other powers of the seat require complex keys, none of which survive from the curse to the present. Area 2.6, Hall of Approach. Box text. This hallway proceeds northeast toward massive double doors of frosted iron. The omnipresent ice is much thicker in this hallway. In fact, icicles of every size and length hang in dense clusters over the entire ceiling. Some of the icicles are so long that they have joined their companion stalagmites on the floor, forming columns of frigid ice. End box text. The ice is thicker in this chamber, as if the curse has somehow gained sentience over the years and is attempting to choke access to the one item that could lessen its power. A path can be threaded through the narrowing ice toward room 2.7, but each PC moving through has a 20% chance per 10 feet traveled down the hallway of dislodging a large icicle by vibration of movement, even flying characters. A PC can avoid the falling ice with a successful saving throw versus breath weapon. Those hit lose 1d4 hit points. The iron doors at the end of the hallway leading to room 2.7 are engraved with the, by now familiar, sunburst. The lock is of exceptional quality, minus 20% penalty to open lock, but the doors are not trapped. However, thick ice on both sides of the doors hold them fast. Getting into the room beyond requires melting the ice, using magic such as Pass Wall, or chopping away the ice followed by a successful Ben Bar's Lift Gates roll. Area 2.7, The Wand of Days. Box text. Whatever the original volume of this room might have been, layers of yards-thick ice have reduced it to roughly a 10-foot cube. In the very center of the chamber is a metal pedestal, strangely ice-free. The pedestal is etched with many signs and runes, and the symbol of a sunburst is prominent on all sides. On top of the pedestal is an ornate device, not unlike a vice, holding lengthwise what appears to be a wand. End box text. Display illustration 24. If the party pressed any of the panels in room 2.2, the runes all glow with a warm yellow light, otherwise they are dark. If the party translates the Moilian runes, they read, "The choice of days empowers the wand, but the choice cannot be made from here." The characters can easily remove the wand from the vice-like holder. It's made of finely polished wood. If a panel was pressed in room 2.2, there is a small line of symbols inscribed on one side. Otherwise, the wand is blank. The symbols record the wand's command phrase in Moilian, Kindle. The wielder can trigger the wand by speaking the word Kindle in any language. When used, the wand sheds the type of light depicted on the chosen panel. The radiance fills a 50-foot radius and lasts 2 rounds. For example, if panel 3 was chosen, the wand produces a burst of light as if the noon sun were in the sky above. This light affects light-sensitive creatures and vampires as if it were the real thing. The party gets the most use out of the wand in the city that waits if they have chosen panel 2, the sunrise. In this case, whenever they trigger the wand in range of a Moilian zombie, the undead curse is ended, the creature's spirit is released, and its physical form falls to dust. What's more, if the panel chosen was any of those that show the sun, this wand can also be used to free the souls caught within Assiraak's phylactery, as described in the Area 31 entry in the Fortress of Conclusion section. The wand has 10 charges. Once it is used up, it can only be recharged by placing it back in its holder on the pedestal and rekeying a panel in room 2.2. The wand can be recharged in this way once per week. Area 2.8, Chamber of Learned Study. Box text. Frost-covered shelves that fill this chamber, standing in silent darkened rows running north-south. If ever there were tomes or librams upon these shelves, it is no longer the case. From your current vantage, the shelves are as empty and devoid of life as the view of the city from the opening along the curving west wall. End box text. A thorough search of the long lines of shelves in this chamber does not produce a single book. However, frozen into the floor in the southeastern corner of the room is a Moilian zombie. Because of its position, the party searching the shelves must successfully make a wisdom check to be aware of it before they round the corner of a shelf at this end of the room. Those failing the check find themselves within the 20-foot draining range of the Moilian zombie. Display illustration number 25 when the party first spies the undead, and with each subsequent viewing of this ubiquitous creature. If PCs are able to overcome it and search it, they discover it wears a simple robe and sandals and carries 31 Moilian platinum pieces in a pouch. Stat block, Moilian zombie. Area 3, Tower of Chance. Refer to Entry 2, the Tower of Mourning, for details on unmapped levels and unkeyed rooms. Only 2 levels of the Tower of Chance are detailed on the map, designated Tower of Chance Level 1, the highest bridge level connected by a yellow bridge, and Tower of Chance Level 2, the middle one connected by a blue bridge on the map. No matter how much the PCs look, they do not discover entrances to levels above or below these two, except windows on the outside of the tower itself. Area 3.1. Entry. Box text. The bridge leads south into an archway on the sleek side of a tower of gray stone and metal. The lintel of the arch is inscribed with seemingly chaotic glyphs and symbols of uncertain meaning. The layer of frost covering the carving makes it difficult to see clearly, and beyond the arch, darkness and silence prevail. End box text. The glyphs depict a random grouping of Moilian numbers. They were purposefully arranged in a random fashion to convey a feeling of chaotic disarray. The party learns nothing from it no matter how long they study the runes. Area 3.2. Central Chamber. Box text. This very large chamber brackets what appears to be the tower's central support column, a massive affair of seamless, frost-covered iron. The mirrors that once covered this room's walls are now for the most part crumbled and shattered. Metallic shards, wooden fragments, and crumbled masonry are strewn about the floor in discrete piles randomly distributed throughout the chamber. End box text. Each pile of broken bits and pieces represents what was once a complete and working machine. These machines were designed to play games of chance, as the Moilians once delighted in such pursuits. The ingenuity of the machines was marvelous, and those Moilians who were able spent considerable amounts of time and money frequenting both this and the other chambers of this tower. Of course, that was long ago when Moil existed on the surface of a world. Nothing now remains of such light-hearted pursuits save these smashed fragments of metal. If the PCs thoroughly search the debris in the chamber, they discover a total of 141 Moilian platinum pieces mixed in with the wreckage. Nothing else of interest can be discovered here. Area 3.3. Cabaret. Box text. This is a massive chamber, apparently occupying a large portion of the level. Round metal tables and stools are everywhere tumbled to the floor, save for a single table and a single stool that have been drawn up next to a large window opening on the curved eastern wall. Upon this table stands a wine bottle filled with a green fluid and a single crystal goblet. Along the western wall is a long, low counter behind which are sections of fallen shelves alternating with cracked and shattered mirrors. A layer of frost covers almost everything, save for over a dozen places amidst the tumbled tables where the unmistakable outlines of missing humanoid bodies persist. End box text. Display illustration number 26. The counter to the west once served as a busy bar, and the shelves were filled with beverages of myriad variety and effect. A look behind the bar now reveals a solid floor covering of smashed glass bottles and decanters. Characters not wearing gauntlets, sturdy boots, and at least leather armor must attempt dexterity checks each round to avoid getting cut and losing one hit point. 3 intact bottles of normal red wine, the label reads Warren & Sons Merlot in Moilian, lie amid the wreckage, and each requires 1d4 rounds of searching to discover. A single compartment in the bar itself, near the center, contains a single crystal glass of exquisite workmanship worth 300 gold. The glass is enchanted so that those drinking alcoholic or otherwise debilitating beverages, including poison, are immune to all ill effects. The frost outlines show bare stone floor and give mute evidence of where Moilian zombies were recruited to join Assiraak in the building of his Fortress of Conclusion. No Moilians remain to endanger the party in this chamber. The table was set straight and pulled up to the window 20 years ago by Desatiso during his trip through this frozen city, and it has not been disturbed since. Desatiso discovered a bottle of liquor he identified as absinthe from amidst the glassy ruin behind the bar, and had himself a fortifying drink before moving on. Scratched into the table with a dagger point is a short sentence in the PC's common tongue. The message reads, Desatiso was here. The discovery of this message may give the party some hope that they are on the right path, and it is true. They will learn of Desatiso's fate later in the adventure should they live that long. Absinthe is a green liquor having a bitter anise or licorice flavor and a high alcohol content, prepared from absinthe and other herbs. Absinthe is uncommon as it is not only intoxicating but toxic. In addition to possible inebriating effects, any PC drinking it must make a saving throw versus poison to avoid losing 1 hit point per minute for the next 20 minutes. It takes a hardy soul to enjoy a drink of absinthe. Area 3.4. Private Suite. Box text. This chamber contains a shattered wood table. On the wreckage of the table is sprawled an unclad frost-covered body. The body is further covered in the shards of what must have been a ceiling mirror before it was broken. End box text. The body is that of a Moilian zombie. Any PC standing in the doorway to look in comes within the 20-foot draining range of the undead. If the PCs overcome the monster, a search of the body and the room reveals over 200 small placards, playing cards, all bearing a demonic horned visage, which is Orcus, on one side, but displaying different glyphs and symbols on the facing side. The cards are not special in any way. Scattered among the placards are 14 Moilian platinum pieces. Stat block, Moilian zombie. Area 3.5, finally an intact mirror. This chamber is very well locked, minus 10% at attempts to pick the lock, and the door is made of iron, not stone. Runes chiseled into the door read, in Moilian, Final Round Games. Box text. The remnants of a wooden table and about 6 high-backed chairs litter this room's floor. Against the west side of the room is a large stone chair that, aside from being covered in frost, does not seem to have fared as badly as many of the other furnishings in the tower. End box text. Display illustration number 27. Before the curse, this room was used for very high-stakes games, usually attended by only the very skillful and very powerful. The stakes in these games were the highest, the players themselves. Losers in this chamber were consigned to the ceiling-mounted Mirror of Life trapping by a game master who sat in the stone seat. The winner could then deal with the loser as he or she saw fit, usually freeing the loser after securing an oath of service for a short period of time. People entering the room are not automatically aware of the mirror on the ceiling. However, anyone mounting a general search, or specifically looking at the ceiling, immediately becomes aware of it. Characters who look up automatically see their reflections and must attempt saving throws versus spell. Anyone who fails is bodily entrapped in one of the mirror's magical holding cells. The proper command word to free prisoners has long since been lost, and any attempt to remove the mirror from the ceiling causes it to shatter. Destroying the mirror releases the trapped PCs, but it also releases the others trapped within it. The mirror currently holds 2 Moilian zombies, who are intelligent enough to be trapped, and they attack any living creatures if released. The mirror also holds Lurkst, a pre-curse Moilian who has languished within the mirror for losing a card game to a card shark named Duart hundreds of years earlier. Lurkst speaks Moilian and an archaic dialect of the Orc tongue. If released, she is at first very disoriented and horrified at what she sees around her. However, Lurkst is nothing if not adaptable, and sly, sneaky, and usually untrustworthy. And if the PCs can manage to communicate with her and explain the situation, Lurkst asks to accompany the party after coming to terms with her new reality. The pre-curse Moilian is a thief by trade, and was actually new to town when she was sucked into the mirror. In the centuries she spent in the mirror, she has forgotten what few landmarks she may have known, although she does recall that the towers of Moil were not nearly so tall when she last saw them. The thief does her best to aid the party as long as it is in her interest. However, her primary loyalty is to herself, and if she ever sees a chance to advance herself at the expense of the party, she won't hesitate to do so. Moil was much warmer when she was trapped, so she isn't dressed for the cold. The functions of Lurkst's non-standard magical items are easily discerned from their names. Stat block, Moilian zombie. Stat block, Lurkst, level 9 halfling thief. Area 3.6, room with a view. Box text. The flickering light of the exterior roiling skyscape flashes and glitters from 3 large openings along the curved southern wall. The uncertain light reveals several columns of clear ice rising from floor to ceiling. Frozen into one of the columns is what appears to be a standing human skeleton. Its skull is free of the ice, looking down, and its arms are at its side. End box text. Display illustration number 28. The central column of ice containing the skeleton is actually a magical construct created by Assiraak called a winter white. There are several winter whites scattered throughout the city that waits, created and placed here by Assiraak as part of his tests of metal. The winter white in this chamber only responds to the party's presence if they attack it or try to move past it to the door leading to room 3.7. In these 2 cases, it raises its bony visage and croaks, "Come to feel my cold embrace, my darlings," and then attacks. Stat block, winter white. Note that a melee hit causes the opponent to erupt in black fire. Area 3.7, stairwell. Box text. A spiral staircase of stone, tiled in green and blue, leads downward. End box text. This stairway is untrapped and descends 20 feet into room 3.8. Area 3.8. Stairwell. Box text. A spiral staircase of stone, tiled in green and blue, leads upward. Resting on the lowest step is a small satchel, covered in frost like most everything else you've seen within the city. End box text. This stairway ascends for 20 feet into room 3.7. The small satchel on the bottom stair is stiff with cold, but looks easily openable. The obvious buckle is trapped with a poison needle, Class E poison, injected, immediate death or 20 points of damage with a successful save. A hidden catch actually opens the satchel. Within the bag are various spell components of a dubious nature: bones, scraps of leathery flesh, pickled eyes, the perspiration of fear, and other unsavory items. Unfortunately, in the intense cold, the glue that held the labels on the vials has freeze-dried, so they've all peeled off the bottles. If the satchel is handled very gently and a thief examines its contents visually before rooting through it, the vials can be removed one at a time before the labels become hopelessly jumbled. This requires a pickpockets roll by the thief. The result of a successful roll also determines what percentage of the vials are removed with their labels. If the roll was 15 or less, one of those recovered intact bears the label Corpse Dust of Assiraak. Otherwise, that label can be found loose at the bottom of the satchel with several others. If the Assiraak label is found loose, the party can try to determine which vial it belongs to. There are several possibilities. Other unlabeled vials include powdered bone, corpse dust, funerary ashes, mummy crumbs, etc. The party will need a considerable time in Magical Lab to determine which is which. There are several other mundane items: a candle, a small silver bell, 2 quills, frozen ink, some wax, and a seal bearing Academician Drake's monogram. The PCs may recognize it if they encountered Drake or searched his chamber or belongings back at the Black Academy. Finally, there are 3 stoppered iron vials, each holding a potion of extra healing. They are frozen solid and must be thawed before they can be opened or used. During his visit to the city one day, Drake lost his spell component satchel and almost lost his life in a close encounter with a Moilian zombie. The necromancer dropped the satchel here in his mad flight down the stairs and counted himself lucky to have gotten off so easily. Nothing has disturbed the bag since. Area 3.9. Entry. Box text. A window opening in the western wall and an open archway to the southwest spill uncertain illumination into this exceptionally large chamber. The only objects in this room are 2 bizarre sculptures of rusting iron wire in the center, seeming to mimic the humanoid form. Each would be at least 10 feet tall when standing, although one of them is tumbled to the ground. The standing sculpture holds a stone tablet before it so that all entering the opening to the tower exterior may read it. End box text. Display illustration number 29. This was once a grand entranceway into the Tower of Chance, greeting rich and powerful guests with appropriate style and show. As is true for many other chambers in the city that waits, most of the items found here did not make the translation from the prime material. Only the 2 statues of greeting survived, although one has fallen and its message written in marble has shattered. The remaining tablet says in the language of Moil, "And by which token you are accounted guests in the Tower of Chance." The smashed tablet once held the first half of the message, but it is now unrecoverable. The first tablet said nothing special, but paranoid characters may certainly be worried by the apparent mystery. Area 3.10. Garment Room. Box text. Immediately in front of the western door is a humanoid-shaped bare spot on the otherwise frost-covered floor. The eastern portion of this chamber is filled with fallen and splintered wooden rods. It appears that they once hung in parallel rows connected to the northern and southern walls. Metal hangers are mixed in with the debris, and a few crumpled cloaks are also visible. End box text. This old garment room once served the clientele of the Tower of Chance. 4 garments can still be found in the chamber. The first 2 appear to be simple woolen cloaks. The third is of a more light poncho dyed red, and the final garment is of brushed white leather, appearing none the worse for the wear, and in fact, there's no frost covering it. Unfortunately for the characters, a minion of Assiraak dropped the cloak here as a subtle trap. The cloak acts as a robe of powerlessness on any who don it. If a remove curse is cast upon the garment before it is donned, it acts as a ring of warmth. If the robe is removed and then donned again, it will be necessary to cast another remove curse, or the cloak will once again affect the wearer as a robe of powerlessness. Area 3.11. Haphazard Chamber. Box text. This large, irregularly shaped chamber appears to abut the tower's central support column. Ice lies thick on the floor, save for the scattered bare patches outlining sprawled humanoid shapes. In the center of the east wall is a single ornate table of wood. Upon the table is a device consisting of a large disc. All along the edge of the disc are small concave slots. In one of the slots rests a small black sphere. Both the device on the table and a brass plaque upon the wall are curiously free of frost. End box text. The device on the table is of course a roulette machine. In one of his strange fits of whimsy, Assiraak restored this particular game of chance with particularly potent enchantments. The nature of the enchantment is partially described in the inscription upon the plaque, which reads, "In games of chance there are risks to be taken. The winner is rewarded, but the loser forsaken." See Assiraak's haphazard wheel in Appendix 2 if any of the party tries their hands at this very risky game. Area 3.12. Who put out the lights? Box text. Shattered stands, broken cabinets, and toppled display shelves lie in sad piles on the floor of this pie-shaped room, as if a giant had taken up the place and shaken it to gauge the contents before tossing it carelessly aside. Only one item has apparently survived this rough treatment. A glass-frosted curio cabinet stands undamaged in the southwestern corner of the chamber. The layer of ice covering the glass makes it difficult to determine the source of the golden light emanating from within. End box text. This room has also been trapped by Assiraak. Are the would-be heroes firm enough in their purpose to pass this chamber by, or are they really just glorified looters, unfit specimens for Assiraak's final purposes? Those who attempt to investigate the contents of the cursed cabinet would, he feels, most likely belong to the latter category. The ice on the cabinet's windows is too thick to see what's inside. The cabinet doors have to be opened. Even scrying and X-ray vision items or spells fail to function on the cabinet, though psionics can penetrate it. If the PCs contrive to melt the ice upon the glass and look in before they open the door, the curse unravels and the golden light fades. The cabinet appears to be empty. Otherwise, as the door is opened, the golden light goes out at the same time as every other source of illumination in the room is magically extinguished. At the same time, a random party member must attempt a saving throw versus spell with a -4 penalty or be silently teleported 50 feet to the east. This leaves that unfortunate dangling in midair outside the tower. In the absence of magical assistance, such as a ring of flying, the victim plunges into the mists far below and thence into the deadly plane of negative energy. If the first party member targeted resists, i.e. successful saving throw, the effect instantaneously moves to another target, who must save versus spell with a -3 penalty or suffer the same fate. This process continues until a target succumbs or until 4 successful saves are made. If light is brought to bear, relighting a torch or magical light, the cabinet instantly swings shut, even if it's held open, and the golden light once more leaks through its frosty panes. The remaining PCs may not at first be aware that the return of the illumination reveals that one of their number may be missing. Each time the cabinet door is opened in this manner, the curse is once more evoked. If the PCs elect to smash the cabinet, the curse is gone for good. Lost companions, however, are not returned. Area 3.13. Strongbox. This room is lined with 1-foot thick plates of steel, treated magically to disallow magical teleportation, tunneling, or scrying. The single door appears as a round valve of steel. Above the door is a symbol of death. Kills 1 or more creatures of up to 80 hit points, set to kill any unauthorized person who attempts entry. The locked wheel on the face of the valve apparently allows one to disengage the 6 steel rods that currently hold the door tight closed. The chamber was once airtight, but the shift to this demiplane has caused a few hairline cracks in the seal. The key to the lock is long gone, and the lock itself is a marvel of locksmithing. Any attempts are at a -30% penalty. What's more, a symbol of insanity has been inscribed on the lock, causing anyone with fewer than 120 hit points who fiddles with it to suffer the effect of a confusion spell until healed, restored, or wished back to mental clarity. If the party manages to get the door open, they can easily see into the chamber. Box text. The chamber revealed beyond the thick round valve is lined with steel plates bolted to the interior. The floor of the chamber contains a fallen wooden rack that has spilled bulging cloth bags upon the hard steel ground. Many of the bags have burst with this rough treatment, and hundreds, perhaps thousands of glittering coins are poured across the floor. Against the east wall is an ornate chair upon which sits a humanoid figure who looks almost as if he had just dozed off, were it not for the patina of frost encrusting him as it does every other visible surface. End box text. Display illustration number 30. This is one of the many treasuries that existed within the Tower of Chance, the only to survive the ages. The strongbox sentinel has been dozing here since the curse, and is now a Moilian zombie who hungers for nearby life force, as eagerly as his fellow macabre citizens. Any who enter through the portal without succumbing to the symbol can enliven the Moilian. The Moilian moves to the edge of the room to get as many in its sphere of draining influence as possible, so long as this does not interfere with the creature's prime directive, to guard the strongbox. In addition to the Moilian's special abilities, it also wears a sentinel mask and a gauntlet of guard, see Appendix 2, and the Moilian makes use of its mask's capabilities as appropriate during the fight. If the party can overcome the Guardian Moilian, they discover a large cache of cash, 4,237 Moilian platinum pieces, stamped with a horned beast upon one face and a city of spires upon the other. Additionally, the party may decide that this room is not a bad place to hole up against the wandering vestage, if they have encountered that malign entity. This conclusion is correct, so long as the characters remember to close the valve. Their mental emanations will be screened, and the vestige will not be able to get a fix on them while they remain within. Cautious characters can confirm that the valve opens easily from the inside. Stat block: Moilian Zombie. Area 4, Tower of Portals. This tower contains only a single level, something like a catwalk in that there are no walls or ceilings providing safety against a fall into the tower's interior. The tower once possessed many teleportation gateways to locations within the city, portals to far-off lands, and a few portals to far-off, more exotic locales. At its height, Moil was a powerful sorcery-dependent city. Most of these links were severed when the city was transferred to its present location. Now, only a few portals still exist within the Tower of Portals interior. Each of the tower's two entrances, areas 4.1 and 4.6, is visible from the other. Area 4.1. Entrance. Box text. An arched opening provides access into the side of the spire. Above the archway there is a line of symbols partially obscured by the ubiquitous ice. End box text. The runes above the door are in Moilian and simply read Tower of Portals. When the PCs look inside, they will see the following. Box text. This tower is hollow. The spread of the darkness above is matched by the mystery of the black depths below. The bridge arches out from your position at the tower's periphery toward the wide central support shaft for the tower. Around this massive shaft is a circular catwalk, apparently glowing with its own dim luminescence. The bridge connects to this central walkway some 20 feet below your current position. Approximately 160 degrees to your left, another bridge springs up from another, lower entrance in the tower's wall, and similarly connects to the central catwalk. From your current vantage, it appears that at least 3 platforms project outward 20 feet or more from the catwalk by free-hanging stairwells. 2 of them are 20 feet above the main catwalk, while the other are 20 feet below it. End box text. Display illustration 31. At this point, nothing else can be discovered that is not already plainly visible. The opening in the wall at 4.1 is on the highest catwalk bridge, 20 feet above the encircling catwalk, while the opening at 4.6 is at the lowest bridge level, 20 feet below the catwalk. Area 4.2. Central Catwalk. Box text. A circular catwalk 20 feet wide encircles a massive strut of steel-reinforced stone. The central strut appears to be the central tower support. It rises as a broad wall into the unrelieved darkness above. The catwalk is free of ice. It appears to be composed of expertly carved marble and holds a dim glow that creates an island of light in the chill darkness. End box text. Area 4.3. Portal of Peril. Box text. This 10-foot diameter platform projects 20 feet away and down from the central catwalk via a set of marble stairs. The platform contains a freestanding arch of a silvery metal. A haze seems to fill out the archway, making it difficult to make out objects on the far side. Inscribed into the top of the arch are strange symbols, and carved into the left-hand arch support is a circular depression. Within the depression is a humanoid palm print cunningly inlaid in blue tile. End box text. This archway once magically teleported pedestrians to the distant city of Cainrath. The symbol at the top of the archway reads Cainrath in Moilian. Of course, that was on the surface of a distant world, and the archway has become unkeyed since then, but the teleportation magic still functions, albeit in a corrupted manner. If anyone merely walks through the gate, the traveler will be spewed forth into a random location within the quasi-elemental plane of vacuum where there is nothing. No breath, no light, no sound, no warmth. Unless the PC can provide his or her own aid, and air pressure, and warmth, he or she will have a very tough time of it. The absence of air pressure forces them to breathe out in one continuous exhalation, lasting one round until no breath remains. After this, the PC must make a saving throw versus death magic each round, with each subsequent check suffering a -2 cumulative penalty. When a saving throw fails, the PC dies. The cold is extreme, but because vacuum is a great insulator, the PC's body heat only radiates away at a rate of 1 hit point per round. The handprint was originally designed to provide a temporary gate to the teleportation goal, allowing goods and individuals to pass between Moil and Cainrath. The handprint panel still functions, and if pressed, opens a physical gateway connecting the archway with the quasi-elemental plane of vacuum. A tremendous howling ensues as the punctured demiplane of Moil seeks to spew its atmosphere into the vacuum of the quasi-elemental plane. All loose items and individuals within 100 feet are swept toward the archway at a movement rate of 21. Those beyond this radius are able to hold themselves back from the atmospheric rush. Those within the 100-foot radius can attempt a dexterity check to grab a nearby projection to hold themselves back. Those who fail the initial dexterity check have one last chance. As they are sucked through, they may attempt to grab an edge of the archway. Dexterity check at a -4 penalty. Those within the 100-foot range who successfully grab something to hold on to must make successful strength checks each round to retain their grips while the gate to the vacuum is open. Ropes and similar restraining devices must make item saving throws versus fire. Unless the palm print is re-triggered by a heroic PC, the gateway remains open for 10 rounds before closing on its own, at which point the gale force winds die down to nothing. Unsecured PCs using fly spells or items conferring the ability to fly are drawn toward the opening at a movement rate of 3, and they gain a +2 bonus to strength checks against being sucked through the archway. Those sucked through the archway fare no better than those who simply walked through. See the effects of vacuum described above. Area 4.4, Portal of Transport. Box text. This 10-foot diameter platform projects 20 feet away and up from the central catwalk via a set of marble stairs. The platform contains a freestanding arch of a silvery metal. A haze seems to fill the archway, making it difficult to make out objects on the far side. Inscribed into the top of the arch are 3 strange symbols, the first inlaid with blue, the second black, and the final inlay in red. Carved into the left-hand arch support is a circular depression. Within the depression are 3 humanoid palm prints inlaid with cunning blue, black, and red tile, respectively. End box text. This archway magically teleports users to 3 different locations within the city. The symbols at the top of the archway read Tower of Health, Hub, and Periphery. The colors of each symbol correspond to the similarly colored handprint. If the blue one is pressed, walking through the arch teleports the pedestrian to Area 7.3 at the Tower of Health. If the black handprint is pressed, the pedestrian is teleported to Area 16.7 in the Spire of Black Ice. Note that this is the most straightforward manner for the PCs to reach the Spire of Black Ice. The characters must travel there once they've properly activated the 3 mechanisms described in the verse on page 58. In other words, the Spire holds their one route to the Fortress of Conclusion. If the red handprint is pressed, those walking through are teleported to the edge of the city. The traveler finds his or herself falling through the misty edges of the city and has only a single round before falling through the veil to the negative energy plane. If a PC walks through the archway without triggering any of the handprints, the magic remains unactivated and they merely walk through the other side of the arch normally. Area 4.5, Portal of Imprisonment. Box text. This 10-foot diameter platform projects 20 feet away and up from the central catwalk via a set of marble stairs. The platform contains a freestanding arch of a silvery metal. A yellow haze seems to fill out the archway, making it difficult to make out objects on the far side. Carved into the left-hand arch support is a circular depression. Within the depression is a humanoid palm print inlaid with yellow tile. End box text. There are no symbols above this archway. The teleportation arch once connected to the lobby of the Tower of Discipline, but Assiraak has modified the gateway so it leads directly into one of the fortified torture machines used by the Moilian police force. Room 6.7 in the Tower of Discipline. If the yellow handprint is pressed, a two-way gate is opened up between this location and Area 6.2. The headsman from Entry 6.2 walks out from that location to collect a few heads, attacking any nearby PCs. Area 5, Aquus Tower. In Moil of old, this tower supplied the city with potable water. With the advent of the curse, the water was salted and became so saline that it is now completely undrinkable. If the liquid had remained potable, it would have frozen solid with the frigid conditions in the city that waits. However, due to its very high salinity, the water remains in a liquid state to this day. The saline water fills the tower from a level 20 feet below the highest bridge level down to the base of the tower, 500 feet below. A layer of solid salt lines the tower's flooded lower reaches. Needless to say, there are no windows on the outside of this tower. Because of the enchanted nature of the tower, the water does not pour through the misty planar boundary at the bottom of the tower. However, any PC so bold as to swim down to this level and magically be able to withstand the water pressure, cold, and lack of air would certainly be pulled through to the negative energy plane. One final note. The walls of the tower have been magically treated to reflect destructive energies back at the caster 45% of the time. Putting a hole in the tower wall below the interior water line, while not a bad idea in and of itself, is not without its dangers. Attempts to put a hole in the tower below the level of the solidified salt will be frustrated by the salt lake itself. An attempt to bore through the salt awakens the brine dragon in room 5.6, who attempts to put an end to such foolishness as quickly as it can. Area 5, Entrance. Box text. The bridge ends at a dark opening within the side of a tower constructed of steel. No symbols or glyphs mark the entrance to this tower. An unmistakably briny odor emanates from the dark portal. End box text. Area 5.2, the vertical sea. Box text. There is no bridge or support beyond the tower portal, just the black chasm of the tower interior. The noise of what looks like waves lapping against a shoreline echo up from the darkness below with a relaxed rhythm. The sharp odor of salt hangs heavy in the air, its source not immediately apparent. Immediately to the right of the portal is an iron ladder bolted to the interior of the tower. The ladder, pitted and rusted in spots, leads into the blackness below. End box text. The water below holds menace. If the physical key necessary for the party's trip to the Fortress of Conclusion were not submerged in the icy depths, the PCs would be well advised to ignore it completely. The iron ladder bolted to the side of the tower leads down to the surface of the water, 40 feet below this entrance, and below the waterline an additional 60 feet. Even though the ladder has seen better days, its corroded surface is more than adequate to support any PCs who might wish to use it. Above and beyond the normal hazards of operating underwater, the party must also prepare for extreme cold if they wish to submerge themselves. The water temperature is well below freezing, and any PC who is not magically protected against cold will be plunged into hypothermia within a matter of minutes. The PC must make a constitution check each round with a cumulative -2 penalty to each check. One failure brings unconsciousness, a second failure, death. The ladder once extended to the bottom of the tower. Now it extends into a thick ring 50 feet across of coral-like crystallized salt that coats the interior of the tower at this depth. The salt was laid down by the brine dragon Assiraak introduced to guard a key necessary for releasing the Phantom Flyer in Area 16.7. From the bottommost rung of the ladder, those with limited sight might at first think they have discovered the uneven floor of the tower. However, an exploration toward the center soon brings the PCs to the lip of the coral-like platform. Another abyss seems to open up to further watery depths, but looking over the edge reveals a wide cave mouth 20 feet below the lip, as depicted in Map 6. Area 5.3, the Sea Cave. Box text. The cold, murky depths seem to pull the heat from your body and the light from your eyes. Ahead of you, the rough, white expanse fails, where a jagged lip of another chasm reaches further into the depths of this submerged tower. Looking over the edge of the abyss, you suddenly spy what appears to be a wide cave mouth in the wall of the rough salt crystal. End box text. The cave mouth is the entrance to the brine dragon's lair. See Map 6 for the appropriate keyed locations. The lair exists within the solid crystalline salt coating the submerged sides of this tower. Unless otherwise noted, all tunnels are 20 feet wide and all ceilings are 20 feet tall. Area 5.4, Salt Grotto. Box text. The tunnel opens up into a large submerged grotto. Your lights reflect only dimly from the discolored salt walls of the rough chamber, save for the northern wall, which appears to be composed of pitted, corroded iron. Strange glyphs are deeply scratched into the wall's iron surface. End box text. The glyphs on the wall are variant versions of the 8th level wizard spell Symbol. Assiraak inscribed these symbols so that if they are read, a powerful 20th level dispel magic is released, affecting everything in the room. Spells and spell-like effects from items that protect from cold or allow water breathing are instantly nullified if they fail their check, as are magical light sources and any other spell or effect in operation, including potions in the PC's possession. Unless the party has significant resources, more charges or spells, their deaths will be a close race between freezing and drowning. Area 5.5, Dead End. Box text. The tunnel widens into another salt-defined drowned cavern. At first glance, this stark area seems empty, but then your eyes resolve the 2 salt-encrusted skeletons which are half embedded in the crystalline wall. One of the skeletal arms protrudes out of the water, pointing almost accusingly at the roof of the grotto. End box text. Display illustration 32. Not many adventurers besides the PCs and Desatiso before them have been able to progress so far into Assiraak's true tomb. The 2 skeletons embedded in the salt wall are evidence that there have been other successful attempts up to a point. These 2 unfortunate souls drowned when the magic-dispelling symbols of room 5.4 canceled their water-breathing and protection from cold spells. Unfortunately, the pair ventured into the salt caverns alone, and when their protections failed, so did their lives. They made it this far in a desperate attempt to find air and shelter before dying in this dead-end chamber. The brine dragon in room 5.6 looted their possessions for his hoard and stripped their bodies of all useful nutrition for a change of diet. The dragon left the remains in this chamber to keep his lair neat and tidy. Any investigation of the salt-rimed bones causes them to crack and crumble away. A close look at the bone fragments reveals scoring, as if from acid, to those who make a successful wisdom check with a -4 penalty. The marks were caused by the brine dragon's saliva. Nothing else can be learned at this location. Area 5.6, Lair of the Brine Dragon. Box text. The tunnel bored through the salt opens up into a very large cavern. Unlike the barren, salt-enclosed expanses encountered up to this point, this room is occupied. Sprawled on a mound of glinting coins, gems, sculptures, and other finery is a massive beast, at least 50 feet long. It is a colossal serpent, with a thickened central body bearing huge flippers. Its head is unmistakably draconic, and its oversized teeth make it appear to be grinning, even though its eyes are closed in slumber. Its hide is rough and mottled, ridged and craggy. The scales are irregular and do not fit well together. Huge clumps of salt encrust its saurian length. Every half-minute, a burst of bubbles from the creature's snout attests to the fact that it is a living, breathing being. At the serpent's opposite end, its tail is wrapped loosely around a salt pillar. Atop the pillar, gleaming with silver radiance through the water, is a large key. End box text. Display illustration 33. The brine dragon here has not been bothered in 2 decades. It passes the years in slumber, absorbing through its skin the salt that it needs to stay alive. The key the PCs need to recover is upon the salt pillar. It wouldn't be a bad strategy to merely sneak over the mound and snatch the key, turn, then get the heck out of Dodge. A successful move silently roll is needed to accomplish this. Those without this skill have a base 5% chance, plus any racial modification. If the attempt fails, the brine dragon awakens. Needless to say, it is an aggressive guardian. Even if the party successfully gets the key off the salt pillar, the dragon will eventually awaken once someone has entered its lair. Roll a d20. The dragon wakes at the start of the round, that many rounds after the first PC entered this chamber. The DM needs to keep careful track of the PC's progress through the salt tunnels. There is a good chance that the dragon will awaken and track them down if they are still underwater. If combat becomes inevitable, they will find the dragon a formidable foe. In addition to its nasty bite, the brine dragon can breathe a cloud of alkaline salt and saliva-based spray that burns like acid. The cloud is 90 feet long and 45 feet wide and high. Additionally, the brine dragon can project Melf's acid arrow 3 times per day at an opponent as a 15th level caster. If the brine dragon is bested, the PCs can catalog the extent of the dragon's horde. Because the dragon cannot breathe out of water, it has not been able to gather the sort of hoard it otherwise would have. The extent of its hoard is not as great as it first appears to be. The creature has laid down a foundation of salt that makes up the bulk of the mound, and scattered what treasures it possesses over it. Monetary treasure in the hoard includes lots of silver, lots of gold, lots of Moilian platinum pieces, 53 gems, many random but totally ruined art objects, and potions of speed, clairvoyance, oil of fumbling, and extra healing, 5 scroll cases, but all contents are ruined, a shield +2, a rope of entanglement, a manual of quickness of action, ruined, a dwarven throwing hammer +3, a scarab of death, and a rod of resurrection with 7 charges remaining. The key on the salt pillar appears to be made of silver and glows with a silvery light. The key is necessary in area 16.7 of the Spire of Black Ice. It is indestructible, and it is enchanted to automatically teleport back to the salt pillar if it is gone for more than 30 days. Stat block: Brine Dragon. Area 5.7 and 5.8. Entrance. Box text. The bridge ends at a dark opening within the side of a tower constructed of steel. No symbols or glyphs mark the entrance to this tower. An unmistakably briny odor emanates from the dark portal. End box text. See Area 5.1 for details. Area 6. Tower of Discipline. The Moilian enforcers, executioners, magistrates, and torturers were all once housed in this tower. As some of the office titles might imply, Moilian justice was arbitrary and violent, as befitted a society that had Orcus as its patron deity. Those brought to this structure, even for supposed routine questioning, were rarely seen or heard from again. It was the hard-hearted policies of the Tower of Discipline, combined with the repeated unholy dictates of the Tower of Orcus, renamed to the Tower of the Forsaken One just a little before the curse was laid, that gave impetus to the organization that finally erected the Tower of Mourning, Tower 2. Refer to Tower 2, the Tower of Mourning, for details on unmapped levels and unkeyed rooms. Only one level of the Tower of Discipline is detailed on Map 7, at the middle bridge level. Where the broken bridge, entry 10, connects to the tower, there is a gaping, irregular hole. If the PCs contrive to reach this opening, they find that the tower is hollow above, while 40 feet below they find a flat surface, the ceiling of the still intact level, littered with the debris of the crumbled upper levels. Area 6.1. Entrance. Box text. The bridge terminates at a dark opening in the side of a tower constructed of stone and steel. Symbols are inscribed in a metal plate above the opening. End box text. The symbols simply read Tower of Discipline in Moilian. Area 6.2. Hall of Slaying. Box text. This elongated pie-shaped room has walls cheerfully decorated with crossed headsman's axes at 10-foot intervals. A jumble of broken and smashed wooden chairs and other cluttered debris fills most of the room. In the northeast aperture of the room stands a stone dais, upon which is set a large block showing many nicks and cuts. Standing menacingly behind the stone block is a humanoid figure wearing a sack-like black hood and wielding a nasty-looking headsman's axe in gauntleted hands. End box text. Display illustration 34. This chamber served as the Tower of Discipline's public execution room, used for the slaying of unjustly accused and sentenced criminals. Public slaying by the headsman was considered a great spectacle, but because of limited seating, the price of admission was steep. The tireless Demos Magan, see room 7.5 for details on Magan, rarely missed a blow unless he was directed to do so for dramatic purposes. The Demos is still here, long after the laws and magistrates who handed down orders of execution have moldered to dust. It answers to no other name besides headsman, and it has become quite insane without regular human contact. When the PCs first enter, it stands completely motionless, as it has done for many years, too stunned at the sight of potential clients to do more. However, after just a few seconds, it will gleefully use its headsman's hood to magically command a randomly selected PC to come forward and place their head upon the block. If it is successful in doing this, it wastes no time in removing the head from the shoulders of the unfortunate PC with its magical headsman's axe of Moil. In addition to the magical items carried and worn by the headsman, the Demos also wears a large obsidian key around its neck on a brass chain. This key opens the portal to the cell block checkpoint at Area 6.4. Stat block. Headsman. Enhanced Demos Megan. Area 6.3, Interrogatorium Alpha. Written in Moilian above this door and the next 3 doors to the east is the Interrogatorium, followed by the designations Alpha, Beta, Ceti, and Delta. The only chamber whose contents survive the shift to the demiplane is this one, Interrogatorium Alpha. Box text. A complex construction of metal and iron is set against the south wall. It forms a many-sided hollow defined by 3-foot iron bars, with the entire structure measuring roughly 10 feet cubed. Suspended in the center of the iron framework is what resembles a large cocoon of frost-coated webs. Hundreds of single web strands radiate out from the cocoon in all directions, securing it to the iron framework. The cocoon hides all features of what it might contain. However, it is approximately 6 feet long and 2 feet in diameter. End box text. In the Tower of Discipline, interrogation and affliction, or torture, were conducted by Tanari sent direct from the priests in the Tower of the Forsaken One. These special agents of the priesthood were good at what they did. The mere sight of their ghastly countenances was sometimes enough to force a confession. Some held that the painful inducements the terrified prisoners invented in their own dread fancies were worse than what an interrogator could come up with. However, when the interrogator is a Tanari from the lower planes, the imaginations of most prisoners fell far short of what abyssal pain could truly mean. Needless to say, anyone brought into an interrogatorium was assured of divulging anything and everything, even making up confessions if innocent. These 4 rooms were some of the most feared in a city already teetering on the edge of a literal abyss. The prisoner still on the rack had been killed by a particularly fiendish method of interrogation before the effect of the curse, and thus never became a Moilian zombie. The webs are the remnant of this particular inducement. If the party cuts down the body and peels away the webs, they find a freeze-dried body, well preserved by the cold. The body wears nothing but a loincloth and a brass chain around its neck. Attached to the chain is a small, stoppered brass vial. The vial opens easily and contains a small piece of durable parchment which reads in Moilian, "Interrogation until admission." The brass vial held the fate of the prisoner as passed down by the magistrates. Unfortunately, the prisoner died under questioning. Area 6.4, Cell Block Checkpoint. The wall separating the cell blocks from the Affliction area, room 6.7, from the rest of the tower is 4-foot thick iron, enchanted to prevent magical passage or destruction. The only way through is by the single obsidian portal leading into 6.4. The door is covered in a bas-relief showing a larger-than-life visage of a screaming human face. The stone door is treated to resist magical passage, such as teleport, dimension door, pass wall, or destruction, such as disintegrate, rock to mud, etc. A large keyhole is easily visible within the mouth of the carving, but the mechanism does not allow unobstructed vision through to the other side. The obsidian key that the headsman in room 6.2 carries can unlock this door. An attempt to pick the door at a minus 20% penalty must be quick. Whether the open lock's attempt is successful or not, a successful saving throw versus breath weapon is necessary to avoid damage when the mouth of the bas-relief snaps shut. Those who fail this check by 1 to 5 points lose 1d6 hit points. Those who fail by 6 points or more lose 1d6 hit points and have a hand bitten off by the stony mouth. If the party opens the door, read the following box text. Stretching away to the left in a long, gentle curve is a bank of cell doors. The bars on each door are black, so black that they seem to absorb all light that falls upon them. Along the northern wall, a faded and frost-covered mural can still be made out. It depicts beings of demonic vestige sitting around an extremely long table, each apparently preparing a human being, or section thereof, for an imminent feast. Multi-hued lights gleam and gutter from within many of the cells, throwing the shadow of the bars upon the mural-covered wall, in a disquieting play of light and darkness. The figures depicted on the mural almost seem to be moving. End box text. This area was one of the locations set aside in the Tower of Discipline to house convicted felons and those awaiting conviction. The obverse side of the obsidian portal leading into this area is carved with a screaming face similar to that on the outside. Unless the PCs state that they hold the portal open, it swings closed and locks. The chances to work the lock and the consequences of picking it from this side are the same as explained above. The mural on the outer wall facing the prison cells was painted by a master of ancient Moil. Ever a sadistic people, the Moilians couldn't help increasing the feelings of hopelessness and fear wherever possible in those held here. The horrible realism of the mural was designed to instill fear in the hearts of the incarcerated. Since the advent of the curse, the mural has been mildly energized with malignant power. Any PC who studies the entire mural from one end to the other will learn nothing to further his or her quest, but they will gain a new inventory of foul images to pollute the subconscious mind. Such a PC who fails a saving throw versus paralyzation with a -2 penalty will be plagued with nightmares for the next 5 nights. For each night the PC suffers a nightmare, they are unable to rememorize spells and operate at a cumulative -1 penalty on THAC0, saving throws, and ability checks because of fatigue. A remove curse spell lifts the images from their mind and makes rest possible, but does not restore lost rest. After 8 hours of full rest, all the penalties associated with this curse disappear. All the cells are empty save for the telltale frost silhouettes of Moilian zombies recruited by Assiraak. On the back wall of each cell, a palm-sized crystal is affixed, sending forth the guttering, strobing, multi-hued illumination. This constant varying light left most of the prisoners at their wits' end after just a few days of incarceration. Just one more example of the sadism practiced by the Moilians before their fall. There is a lock on each cell. The headsman's key will unlock all of them. The bars on each cell are iron coated with a special magical gloss. To the eye, the bars absorb light, and to the touch, they absorb strength. Merely touching the bar causes severe pain, but no real damage. If a character remains in contact with a bar for a full round, he or she loses 1d4 hit points of strength, in addition to suffering horrid agony. Anyone drained to 0 strength falls into unconsciousness for 1d4 plus 4 rounds. The strength loss is only temporary. It returns at a rate of 1 point a round. Still, this enchantment worked well on those who would test their strength against the bars. If the PCs somehow contrive a way to remove a bar from its housing, the enchantment fades away from it in the space of 1 turn. Area 6.5, Dark Cell. Box text. Unlike the other cells that you have seen so far, the interior of this cell is cloaked in oily darkness. The guttering light reflected off the abominable wall from nearby cells is insufficient to penetrate the gloom here. End box text. If the party shines a light source of their own into the darkness of the cell, they can see that the crystal upon the far wall has been smashed in. Further, it seems to be very slowly dripping a foul black substance that looks very similar to a very thick oil. A pool of this stuff has formed upon the floor, covering the entire floor of the cell. Only the lip of floor seems to be holding it back from spilling into the general corridor. PCs who stick an item into the oily substance can get a sample of this molasses-like fluid, which is blacker than midnight. The material is thick, sticky, and slightly acidic. Each turn it is in contact with flesh, it causes 1 point of damage. Each light was magically cursed to slowly excrete this messy stuff if it was ever broken. This was to punish any prisoner who became overly rambunctious in a cell. Any prisoner who broke a light was allowed to stew in the fruit of his or her labor. The prisoner was literally allowed to slowly and painfully dissolve away, as the cell was slowly but surely covered with this acidic gunk. A light broken outside the cell will not secrete this acidic oil because of the limited nature of this curse. Area 6.6, Occupied. Box text. This cell does not have the usual frost silhouette on the floor. In fact, there is a humanoid figure shackled below the light. The shackles are positioned such that the figure's arms are stretched straight out to each side. The figure is wearing a voluminous brown robe of frayed cloth. A hood of leather is drawn over its head, and it appears to be securely fastened with a silver chain under the chin. The figure is unmoving, and the head lolls down upon the chest. End box text. Display illustration 35. This figure is Isafel, once one of Assiraak's vanishing few living servants. She was recruited for both her special knowledge and special abilities. Isafel is a Medusa. Unfortunately, the spirit of the Demi-Lich has little patience with the foibles of the living, even one such as a Medusa. On a pretext, Assiraak had Isafel bound within this chamber, decreeing that she should be restrained in darkness until she learned humility. As a supernatural creature herself, she is resistant to privation, although her magical items are what really have kept her alive. At the sound of the party's tread, she raises her hooded head and cries out in the common tongue, "Assiraak, have you finally come to release me from this chill bondage? I've learned humbleness and will serve you faithfully. I beg you to release me." The voice is obviously that of a woman. If the PCs call out to her, she is confused at first, but swiftly recognizes that the PCs are not servants of Assiraak. She will then try to persuade the party to release her, telling them that the hood is stifling her and they must let her go. She pretends to revile Assiraak and promises to reveal all if only the party frees her from bondage. She asks that they release her bound hands first so that with her own 2 hands she can pull the hood away from her face. Being no fool, she will not reveal that she is a Medusa. She hopes to waylay the adventurers as proof of her devotion to Assiraak. If her hood is removed, she tries to petrify the PCs. The Medusa still has the personal belongings she was carrying when she was seized and imprisoned here by Assiraak's order. She has a ring of warmth on one hand, and a gold ring clasping an emerald of 150 gold value on the other hand. In a pouch at her waist, she carries 4 incense sticks, 2 bone dice, an enchanted petrified stomach, and an enchanted petrified heart. A successful wisdom check at a -6 penalty, or a successful healing proficiency check is necessary to identify each. Both items are inscribed with fanciful designs. See Area 19 in the Fortress of Conclusion for more details on the origin of these 2 items. The stomach acts as a permanent ring of sustenance to anyone carrying it, and the petrified heart acts as a standard ring of regeneration to anyone carrying it. Stat block: Isafel, Medusa. Area 6.7, Affliction Area. Box text. This elongated pie-shaped room has bare walls, but every 10-foot area of floor space holds a strange device, some 24 in all. Each device is different from the next. Most of these constructions seem to be designed to restrain human-sized creatures so that some sort of infernal rig can be connected to them. Some devices in the first rank are immediately recognizable as torture equipment. There is a rack for the stretching of limbs, a table positioned beneath a set of mechanical arms outfitted with various razors and pincers, a steel harness suspended above a fire pit, an iron maiden, and a seat fitted with foot, hand, and head screws. These items represent just a few pieces of equipment of all that is assembled in the chamber. One of the devices near the center of the chamber appears to be occupied. End box text. One of the sentences handed down by Moilian magistrates, in fact, the one that was most often handed down, was that of affliction. In other words, torture. In this way, citizens who possessed enough skill or knowledge to be valuable to society at large were spared the headsman's axe for questionable activities. If the PCs want to catalog all the fiendish equipment found in this chamber, the DM can freely furnish the room with devices out of lore or legend. Note that it's often enough just to suggest a few desperate items laying upon a small table next to a restraining chair. A water hose, 2 small metal spheres, and cat's fur, for example. The imaginations of the players will provide far more horrible applications of the items than if everything were clearly defined. Near the center of the chamber is a large iron wheel set vertically, upon which a mummified form is strapped with cracked leather restraints. The wheel is set to spin freely with a good shove. Next to the wheel is a tray that contains a long feather, very abrasive paper, a bellows, and a dish of sand. The figure on the wheel was tortured to death before the curse and has not become a Moilian zombie. A brass vial secured around the neck of the figure contains a piece of durable parchment. It reads, "Absolve" in Moilian. The afflictors chose to disregard the instructions found in the vial. Area 7, Tower of Health. Ill and infirm Moilians once frequented this institution to heal and recuperate from the daily afflictions of life or conflict. In the city that waits, this tower is no longer a beacon for the sick and weary. The curse has warped this building and its contents into a decidedly unhealthy location. Refer to Tower 2, the Tower of Mourning, for details on unmapped levels and unkeyed rooms. Only 2 levels of the Tower of Health are detailed on Map 7, designated Tower of Health Level 1 and the Tower of Health Level 3. The level between these 2 is inaccessible, the only entrance being an archway on the southwest side of the tower where a mid-level bridge once connected to a now-lost tower to the west. In any case, this level is desolate and empty. No matter how much the party looks, they do not discover entrances to any other levels of the tower. Area 7.1, Entrance. Box text. Above the open arched entrance to this tower is a single image inscribed upon the statue. A humanoid figure wrapped in many lengths of cloth, about which 2 serpents are intertwined. Above the head of the wrapped figure, the serpents stare at each other, eye to eye. End box text. This is the entrance to the Tower of Health. As such, the Moilian sign for medicine is inscribed above the entrance. It is an ominous-looking derivative of the caduceus, and the PCs who identify the origins of the sign might do well to take foreshadowing to heart. Area 7.2, Lobby. Box text. This long, wide chamber traces a short span about the tower's periphery. 3 large windows along the eastern wall allow intermittent illumination into the disheveled room. Broken benches and chairs litter the expanse of the floor. A stone counter running the convex curve of the western wall seems to have weathered the damage better. Sheaves and sheaves of what appear to be scattered papers are plastered by ice to the countertop, the floor, the walls, and even the ceiling of the chamber. Near the western door, a single frost silhouette reveals the bare marble floor of the chamber. End box text. Not much of interest can be discovered in this chamber. The paper is for the most part ruined from the moisture and ice, but if the party is able to salvage any readable portion, they find obscure medical records of inconsequential and long-gone citizens of Moil. Area 7.3, Sunroom. Box text. A 50 or 60-foot section of the southeastern concave wall opens to the exterior of the tower, allowing an unobstructed view of the grim city skyline. Chairs meant for reclining are arranged in such a way as to catch the available light from the window, although the heavy hoarfrost on the chairs speaks mutely to how much time has passed since any use has been made of them. End box text. On one of the westernmost chairs, 2 Moilian zombies lie quiescent in undead slumber. Observant PCs can probably avoid these creatures, however, they will have to get past the undead if they wish to access the western hallway from this side. Stat block, 2 Moilian zombies. Area 7.4, Convalescent Room. Box text. There is a steel-framed bed against the far wall, the covers of which are pulled up to conceal a humanoid shape beneath. An armoire has fallen to the floor in the center of the chamber and shattered. Splinters and larger pieces of wood are scattered about the floor. Like the armoire, a standing mirror has also fallen to the floor, mixing glassy shards with the wooden debris. Like everywhere else, frost coats every surface. End box text. This was one of the many rooms in the Tower of Health prepared to house sick citizens, or at least those who could afford such treatment. The present occupant of the bed is merely the skeletal remains of a patient who died before the effects of the curse and was then lucky enough to miss being randomly animated by leakage from the negative energy plane. A search of the armoire reveals a couple of stiff frozen robes, but nothing of interest or value to the party. Area 7.5, Occupied Convalescent Room. Box text. A steel-framed bed lies crumpled and bent against the far wall. The mattress is shredded and the blankets are completely missing. A wooden armoire is smashed almost beyond recognizability, and what was once probably a mirror is now only so many reflective splinters. Squatting in the middle of this destruction is what looks to be a youthful woman wearing a gray robe with a long white coat over it. Her skin is grayish white, her hair platinum blonde. She supports her head in her hands as if she is suffering. End box text. Display illustration number 36. The being before the PCs is a medically specialized Magin. Note, Magin are fully described in the Mystara Monstrous Compendium Appendix. Magins are constructs created by a complex biomagical process using sorcerously charged gelatin poured into humanoid-shaped molds. If a Magin is killed, its body dissolves suddenly in an acrid burst of multicolored flame and smoke. They are golem-like, but more intelligent than their brutish cousins. Magins look more or less human, depending on the artistry used to create them. Although they possess basic personalities, their motivations and goals are centered around the primary function they were created to perform. The Moilians created a host of medical Magins, referred to as Medruns, in the Tower of Health, to ensure that Moilian health was unceasingly looked after by untiring servants. In addition to other special immunities and powers, all Medruns can cure light wounds thrice per day. Also, Medruns have the healing and herbalism proficiencies with a skill of 15. Finally, to facilitate their duties, Medruns are incredibly strong, strength 18/76. Unless the characters take pains to open the door to the room silently, the Medrun raises her head from her hands and speaks in a normal and obviously very hopeful voice. The language is Moilian, and she says, "Hello? Are you feeling poorly? I am a fully functional Medrun. I can help you with your wounds or hurts. It has been so very long since I have laid eyes upon a living being." The Medrun's name is Cyndia, and if the language barrier can be broken, the party can easily discover that she is a medical construct, bent on healing them of any real or perceived hurts. If the PCs indicate that they are hurt in any way, Cyndia will show them the way to the medical stores in room 7.11. If any of the party are seriously hurt or damaged, she will insist on showing the PCs to one of the operating rooms, room 7.12, where they can get immediate attention from Dr. Tar. In this case, she insists on carrying the wounded PC in her gentle but incredibly strong arms. Because the PCs are the first living beings she has seen in ages, Cyndia wants to accompany the party to keep them healthy, regardless of the party's wishes. The Medron wouldn't be a bad addition to the party, especially in light of her medical expertise and slight magical healing ability. On the other hand, she implicitly trusts the remaining instrumentation surviving within the Tower of Health. She carries no weapons, but will use a weapon given to her by the PCs in their defense, except that she will never harm living beings. She truly has the best interests of the party at heart, but the changes that have occurred in the city since the advent of the curse could make some of her choices dangerous. Many of the drugs in medical stores have gone bad, and the Medron Dr. Tar has degenerated into a deranged psychosurgical lunatic. Her knowledge of the city does not extend a single inch beyond the bounds of the Tower of Health. Stat block: Cyndia, Medron Magen. Area 7.6, Deep View Chamber. Box text. This very large chamber is almost pie-shaped. A massive iron cylinder supported by a broad stone base occupies the center of the chamber. The cylinder appears to be at least 30 feet long with a diameter of 10 feet. A circular hatch is hanging off its hinges from a 3-foot diameter opening on the end of the cylinder facing the door. Small metal fragments of various size and shape litter the floor beneath the ruined hatch. A flat, square piece of what appears to be crystal is inset directly above the opening. The crystal is dark with a single jagged crack easily visible in its face. End box text. The large device once allowed the Moilian healers and Medrons to diagnose illnesses and injuries. Just within the 3-foot diameter opening in the cylinder is a tube of similar diameter upon which is set a 7-foot padded metal platform on rollers. The patient was helped onto the platform and the hatch closed. The platform then rolled into the heart of the device, magically paralyzing the patient so involuntary movements would not confuse the diagnosis. When the platform was situated in the center of the deep viewer, the external crystal viewing screen would light up, showing a silhouette of the patient's body. Various types of sickness, injuries, infirmities, and even debilitating curses would glow in coded colors on the schematic of the observed patient's body. At the same time, the deep viewer itself would offer a verbal diagnosis, highlighting each injury in turn to accompany its speech. After diagnosis, the platform would spit the patient back out of the front opening, freed from the temporary paralysis and none the worse for wear. At least that's how the deep viewer used to work. In its present rundown condition, it has become a bit dangerous. If Cyndia, from room 7.5, is with the party, she tries to persuade injured PCs that it would be best if she could diagnose them here. Even if the PCs have previously run across malfunctioning medical equipment within the tower, Cyndia will shoo such worries away, suggesting that any little incidents stemmed from their lack of expertise in how to operate the healing devices, ending with a comment that, "Good deep viewing can only be to your benefit. It will not hurt a bit." Any PC who is so bold or foolish as to climb into the opening and onto the waiting platform is automatically paralyzed when he or she lies down upon its padded expanse. The hanging door creaks and tries to close, but is unable to complete its motion. Heedless of this first malfunction, the platform slides its cargo onto a central pod 15 feet inward from the hatch. The view of the patient from outside the deep viewer is obscured by the membranous pod. Within this diaphanous pod, 2 halves of a steel-reinforced sensor grid close together on the patient's body. Those watching the cracked screen from outside momentarily see the silhouette of their friend's body displayed in the screen, with injuries glowing green or yellow. Suddenly, the silhouette of the body visibly convulses on the screen, then glows bright red over its entire surface. Unfortunately, the steel sensor grid closed in a little too closely on its patient, save versus polymorph to avoid 4d10 damage. A voice speaking in Moilian issues from the deep viewer saying, "This patient has been severely crushed and needs medical attention immediately." The platform then issues forth from the pod, unceremoniously dumping the pulped body of the patient out the front hatch of the deep viewer. If the previous events occur while Cyndia is with the party, she screams and attempts to grab up the body and rush it to Dr. Tar in room 7.12 for aid, or to the deep freeze in room 7.10 for later revival if the character was killed. She is very insistent upon this course of action, but desists if the party threatens violence to stop her. Area 7.7, Apparatus. Box text. A dim green glow suffuses the air around a bulbous-looking metal container 5 feet in diameter where it rests against the floor. From this relatively narrow diameter, the cylinder expands to a 10-foot diameter near the ceiling, 12 feet above. Small glass pods protrude from the slick metal surface in unordered profusion. Most of the glass pods shine with pinpoints of green light, but some are shattered and dark. On the facing side of this apparatus, there is a deep indentation visible, shaped like a humanoid body. The once comfortable-looking leather padding within the cavity is now cracked and peeling. The rest of the room is empty of either furnishings or debris. End box text. Display illustration 37. The surviving apparatus within this chamber is another marvel of Moilian magitech. It is an organ and limb regenerator. It once functioned fairly reliably in the days when the Tower of Health was staffed by a full complement of Medran Magians. Dismemberment was not uncommon in Moil, especially with the gory practice of trophy-taking practiced by tournament victors in the Gladiatorial Tower, Tower 14. This apparatus allowed Moilians with sufficient funds to grow a limb to replace that which was lost. Of course, that was back in the days when the instrument was daily recalibrated and tested. Its enchantment coils, thaumaturgic circuitry, and ectodraulic displacers are in sorry shape due primarily to the catastrophic effects of the transfer of Moil to this demiplane, followed by centuries of neglect. If Cyndia, from room 7.5, has joined the party, she cajoles anyone who lacks a limb or an eye to give the apparatus a try. Characters with a full complement of limbs do not trigger the apparatus, even if they recline within the indentation. If a PC who is missing a body part steps into the indentation, the apparatus begins to hum, as all the glass pods hanging from the device's exterior turn from green to yellow. In the 8 glass pods that were smashed and dark, small sparks of ineffectual energy can be observed to sizzle and crackle, sending a burnt ozone smell into the air. Compare the affected PC's constitution score to the following table to find the effect the apparatus has on that PC. Alternatively, the DM can roll a d20 to determine the effect. 1 through 6. Effect. Subject killed outright from pain of procedure. No regrowth of limb. 7 through 9. Effect. Subject falls into a coma for 1d4 days. Withered and useless limb regrown. 10 to 14. Effect. Limb regrown with mind of its own. It attempts to bring about the subject's demise. 15 through 17. Effect. Normal limb regrown. 18 up. Effect. Limb regrown with supernatural strength, resistance to injury, or power of DM's choice. Smashing 1d10 more of the glass globes protruding from the exterior of this machine finishes the job that time and neglect have begun. The machine is destroyed and no longer functions at all. Area 7.8. Stairwell. Box text. An intact spiral staircase of stone, tiled and off-white, leads downward. End box text. This stairway is untrapped, descending for 40 feet where it connects with room 7.9. Note that this stairway completely bypasses level 2, which is unmapped as it cannot be accessed from either of the surviving levels above or below it. Area 7.9. Stairwell. Box text. An intact staircase is built into the side of this curving corridor, leading upward. End box text. This stairway is untrapped, ascending for 40 feet where it connects with room 7.8. Note that this stairway completely bypasses level 2, which is unmapped as it cannot be accessed from either of the surviving levels above or below it. Area 7.10. Deep Freezer. Box text. The floor of this chamber is dotted with a gridwork of 3-foot diameter pools. The pools each occupy a 10-foot by 10-foot area upon the floor, and there are 16 pools in all. The pools are filled with luminescent bluish fluid that bubbles and roils and almost seems as if it is trying to run up and out of each pool. Strange shadows cast up from 3 of the pools indicate that these pits must contain objects of some sort blocking the glow of light. A chill greater than normal permeates this silent chamber. End box text. The pools were once magically infused with the power to freeze and preserve critically ill or mortally injured Moilians indefinitely. Each of the pools contained a magical super-chilled fluid to a depth of 9 feet. Those to be preserved were merely dipped into a pool and allowed to freeze solid. A magical enchantment upon the chamber prevented further cell damage to individuals frozen in this way, Unfortunately, that enchantment has been broken, although the pools are still filled with the super-chilled fluid. 3 of the pools contain long-preserved Moilians. These have not become Moilian zombies. When the magical protection failed, they died a real death and are now nothing more than preserved meat. Living flesh that comes in contact with the super-chilled fluid takes 2d6 points of damage per round. Someone who is submerged in the fluid is frozen solid and dies in less than a round. Characters magically protected from cold can attempt a saving throw versus breath weapon each round to avoid freezing solid and perishing. The character still suffers 2d6 points of damage no matter how well protected against cold. The character can attempt a dexterity or strength check at a -4 penalty each round to scramble out of the pool. If any of the fluid is somehow removed from one of the pools, it boils and evaporates away within 1d6 rounds. Area 7.11 Drugstores. The single door to this chamber is magically locked to open only to the touch of a Medron, similar to the effects of a wizard lock spell cast at 12th level. Box text. Shelves line every wall and stand in 2 high rows down the center of this chamber. The shelves are literally filled with all manner of containers, but the frost gives every vial, bottle, packet, and pouch the same ominous crusted white pallor. Here and there, some past disturbance has toppled bottles and vials to the ground, as evidenced by debris on the floor of the chamber. In the southern corner of the room, an entire shelf unit has toppled forward. The former contents lie in a heaped pile of glass, ceramic, cloth, and bone beneath the shelf unit. End box text. This chamber contained many of the drugs and medicines used by the Medron units charged with keeping the citizens of Moil healthy. With the advent of the curse, many of the once healthful and useful items within this chamber have become unsafe, if not downright deadly, although some of the substances found here still maintain their beneficial properties. In true chaotic fashion, appropriate to a people who worshipped the chaotic Orcus, no container matches that of its neighbor, either in shape or even in material of construction. Bone tubes, leather pouches, paper packets, and glass vials of all shapes and sizes share the shelves equally. There are no markings on any of the bottles to distinguish one from another, and in any case, the properties of many of the drugs here have mutated with the advent of the curse. If Cyndia is with the party, she has no better chance of picking out safe medicines than the party themselves. If the party tries to randomly sample the containers found here in the drug stores, consult the tables below. If the party investigates the tipped shelf unit, they discover a Moilian zombie who was trapped in slumber but will wake to greet any PC who gets within 20 feet. The Moilian zombie carries 23 Moilian platinum pieces. Stat block Moilian zombie. Box text. Roll 1d8 to determine the general consistency and another 1d8 for the effect of each substance sampled. Consistency 1d8. 1. Colorless liquid. 2. Luminescent liquid. 3. Green powder. 4. Dried mushrooms. 5. Tablets. 6. Blue syrup. 7. Bitter-smelling sludge. And 8. Rainbow-hued liquid. Effect 1d8. 1. Treat as a potion of vitality. 2. A Class I poison, 30 or 15 points of damage. 3. As an elixir of health. 4. As an elixir of madness. 5. As an elixir of youth. 6. Ages the imbiber 4d10 years. 7. As a potion of extra healing. And 8. Permanently drains 1d4 points of strength. Area 7.12 Dr. Tar's operating room. Box text. The ceiling of this very slightly pie-shaped room is higher than in many of the previous areas of the tower. It stretches up into darkness past 30 feet. The floor of the chamber is home to at least a couple dozen simple-looking beds. The beds are arranged in neat columns over the entire area of the room, one to each 10-foot section of the floor. All of the beds look to be neatly made, with one white pillow and a single sheet folded back in exactly the same way on each cot. Suddenly, a shape detaches from the darkness above, folding downward on a thick tether like a curiously mechanical snake. End box text. Display illustration 38. This chamber is the realm of the highly modified Medron. See Cindy's description in the Room 7.5 entry, named Dr. Tar. The good doctor is suspended from the ceiling at the end of a retractable ectodraulic, or magically self-pressurizing fluid, appendage made of rusted iron jointed like a fiendishly complex fireman's ladder. The 40-foot-high ceiling is covered with a gridwork of tracks upon which Dr. Tar's ectodraulic appendage navigates on a set of grooved wheels. Movement score of 9. The end of the arm can reach into any part of the room and about 20 feet into the corridor or beyond. At the lower end of the ectodraulic arm is the doctor's humanoid torso. The iron appendage begins where his legs would normally be. He possesses a pasty white face with platinum blonde hair cut short, complete with a charming white goatee. In addition to 2 regular-looking arms, he also possesses a host of ancillary appendages of joined metal, most of which are tipped with scalpels, circular saws, and other ominous-looking equipment designed to cut flesh. The jointed limbs hang around him like the half-curled legs of a spider gone horribly wrong. Dr. Tar hasn't had a patient in too many years to count. Since his primary function is to perform operations, he's gone a bit mad in the many years since he has had a living body to work on. However, this isn't immediately obvious to any prospective clients who enter his chamber. In fact, he seems to be the very definition of a concerned, gentle healer who only has the interests of his patients in mind. With this kindly air, he will attempt to persuade any sick or wounded PCs to lie down on one of the operating beds so he can take a look at the problem, unquote. If Cynthia is still with the party, she throws in her wholehearted support of the doctor. This should tip off the party right away. If any PC is foolish enough to hop onto a bed, Dr. Tar instantly anesthetizes the patient. From that point on, Dr. Tar will try to keep the patient indefinitely. No matter how long the PCs wait, Dr. Tar will continue putting them off on some technicality or another. He really needs a few more days of observation, and all the tissue cell tests are not in yet, etc. In fact, while the party waits, he attempts to get others to jump up on a bed for a physical as well. It would make Dr. Tar immensely happy to have a whole party of patients to keep drugged and anesthetized so that he could practice his trade upon them until they finally die from complications or old age. The Midran surgeon will use any stratagem he can to get one or more of the PCs into position to operate. And if it looks like the PCs intend to remain steadfast in their refusal of even just a basic checkup and physical, Dr. Tar begins to get desperate. If all else fails, the doctor attempts to anesthetize the entire party with one of his specialized limbs. He can shoot a spray of sleeping gas thrice per day. In addition, he can bring his cutting implements to bear on the PCs with deadly accuracy because of his great knowledge of anatomy. If Dr. Tar can overcome the party, he will transfer each to a separate bed, stabilize them if they are in serious danger of dying, and then drug them as described above. Note that Cynthia can't help but obey Dr. Tar in this instance, attempting to restrain the party from their flank at an inopportune time. Attacks against the doctor's iron ectoplasmic appendage arm only inflict as much damage as the magical bonus of the weapon used against it. The PCs are better off attacking the fleshy part of Dr. Tar. If the parties overcome Dr. Tar, he dissolves, as Magians are wont to do when destroyed, leaving behind a gridwork of magical circuitry suspended by the limply hanging scalpel appendages. Nothing of value can be recovered from this sticky mess. Stat block: Dr. Tar, Modified Midran Magian. Area 7.13, Emergency Entrance. Box text. The bridge connects to a large opening in the western side of another icy spire. The arch above the opening holds a single image inscribed upon the stone, a humanoid figure wrapped in many lengths of cloth, about which 2 serpents are intertwined. Above the head of the wrapped figure, the serpents stare at each other, eye to eye. End box text. This is the emergency entrance to the Tower of Health. The Moilian sign for medicine is inscribed above the entrance. Once, a staff of competent Midrans was on hand to greet those entering the tower in great need. Now, the chamber immediately beyond the entrance is empty, silent, and cold. Area 8, Hollow Tower. None of the floor levels of this tower exist any longer. They've all fallen away into darkness at the base. There is nothing to discover here, and if the PCs travel down to the base of the tower, they enter the misty borders of the city that waits and risk falling into the negative energy plane. See Area 11. Areas 8.1 and 8.2. 2 entries. Box text. The bridge leads northwest into an archway in the sleek side of a tower of gray stone and metal. The lintel of the arch is decorated with what appear to be gold and platinum coins set into the stone. However, the layer of frost covering the carving makes it difficult to see clearly. Beyond the arch, there appears to be nothing but a vast cylindrical pit. End box text. Those looking into the tower see that their first impression is correct. If there were ever any floors here, they have long since fallen into the darkness of the tower's interior. Small points of flickering light show where windows let light from the city into the hollow space within the spire. One of the points of light marks the single other bridge connecting this tower to the rest of the city. There is no map of this tower since there is no complexity or encounter. The box text is good for either entrance. The coins pressed into the stone, 20 gold and 20 platinum, are of Moilian mintage. They indicated that this tower was once the treasury tower of Moil. None of the vast wealth once stored here survived the transition from the world of light to this demiplane of waiting. Area 9, Tower of Webs. Like Tower 8, this tower has long since lost its interior levels. However, unlike Tower 8, this tower has gained dangerous guardians. The PCs must deal with the guardians of this tower to find and activate the first mechanism necessary to allow their passage into the Fortress of Conclusion. This tower is composed entirely of steel and has no other openings to the outside other than that described under 9.1. Area 9.1. Entry. Box text. The bridge terminates on the eastern side of a silent spire. An undecorated arch allows entry into what appears to be another hollow tower. However, there is an unmistakable greenish fluorescence shining up from below, highlighting the edges of the arch in a sickly hue. End box text. A look through the arch reveals a tower of empty floors, but filled with threat. A mass of green glowing webbing stretches across the entire diameter of the tower interior. See Map 7. Starting 10 feet below the lip of the entrance. From the vantage of the archway, it is impossible to determine whether the webs stretch down to the base of the tower or if they end short of it. PCs who take the time to carefully scan the visible webbing can detect no movement. If the webbing is prodded or probed in some way, there is a 10% chance that a single wraith spider scuttles up from below to investigate. See Area 9.2. But the wraith spider does not leave the webbing. See the next entry for more information on the webbing and traversing these dangerous strands. Unlike the other towers, this tower is free of windows. The arch is the only apparent opening. Area 9.2. A tangled web. Box text. Gossamer strands of gleaming emerald weave impossibly delicate designs against the dark. Space is tight between the strands. The largest opening in the mass are no more than 5 feet wide. There is nowhere to stand except upon the glittering web lines themselves. The pale light of the webs seems to chill rather than warm. Heat is only a fading memory. End box text. Because of the tight spacing between the strands of web, creatures flying with the aid of wings will quickly be tangled in the lines. Any living creature touching the web, even if gloved or booted, sustains 1d4 points of damage from numbing cold. A successful saving throw versus paralyzation prevents the victim from being immobilized for 1d6 rounds, sustaining further cold damage for each round in contact. The webs can be cut only with silver or magical weapons or by a successful bend bars lift gates roll. Unless the PCs have access to highly maneuverable flying magic, their best bet is to secure a rope from the archway, suspending a character with a magical blade to cut through the webbing as the rope is lowered. Even with fly spells or the like, it is necessary to descend slowly, cutting a channel through the glowing webbing large enough to fly through. A full turn of cutting through the 80 feet of webbing must be endured before breaking through the lower terminus of the barrier. Unfortunately, any movements on the web are detected by the 13 wraith spiders, as described in Monstrous Compendium Annual 2, who spun the web. The spiders congregate within 1d6 rounds at the source of the disturbance. The wraith spiders have a significant combat advantage against those hanging from a rope, who lose any dexterity bonus, or those stuck to a web. No dexterity bonus. Wraith spiders gain +4 to attack rolls. Scarlet eyes encircle the insubstantial forms of the spiders, allowing them to see in every direction simultaneously. Wraith spiders appear as dim arachnid shapes whose 8 legs trail off into dark mist. They are more shadow than substance, but their mandibles leave visible wounds. The wraith spiders in the web serve the winter white described in entry 9.3. In the event that the PCs manage to bypass the spiders in the web, the wraith spiders are attracted to any conflict on or around the dangling cube at 9.3. Stat block: 13 wraith spiders. Area 9.3. Guarded riddle cube. Box text: an expansive mass of glowing webbing constitutes a sinister ceiling within this shaft-like enclosure. A thick braid of luminescent webbing hangs many feet down from the central mass, suspending what appears to be a black cube 10 feet on a side. Strange designs, etched in red, decorate the surface of the box. End box text. Display illustration 39. The cube hangs from a 50-foot strand of web. The scarlet etchings on the faces of the cube may seem disquieting, but the most ominous decoration of all is the winter white standing easily upon the bottom of the cube in direct defiance of gravity. The winter white is wearing a ring of universal movement, see Appendix 2, and is initially out of the PC's line of sight. The winter white tries to remain concealed until the PCs approach the cube for close scrutiny, at which point it attacks. Roll for surprise. If the PCs are able to disengage from the winter white, either to flee or in an attempt to harry it with missile weapons, the undead calls upon the powers of its ring to bring the fight back to the PCs. If any wraith spiders remain, the winter white calls to them for aid as well. Those PCs who have a chance to study the cube safely determine that the underside of the cube, a 10-foot square area, is engraved with a riddle, picked out in the same red stone that decorates the rest of the cube. Beneath the riddle are 3 plaques. A successful wisdom check allows the PCs to determine that each plaque can be depressed. The plaques depict 1. A mighty oak tree with many roots reaching down into loamy soil. 2. A cat with many hissing snake-headed tails. And 3. A rope with one end frayed and partially unraveled. The riddle reads in the PC's common tongue, box text: "Many tales have I, or many a beginning. If I fail, people sigh. Whales mark their passing." End box text. The most correct answer to this riddle is a rope. Those suspended from a rope often scream when the rope breaks and they fall to their deaths. No matter which plaque is depressed, a click is heard, and the picture on the plaque fades. Pressing any of the other plaques after this has no additional effect. If the PCs chose incorrectly, they must wait a full 24 hours before returning. At that point, the puzzle automatically resets. Solving this puzzle releases one of 3 impregnable portcullises in room 16.6 of the Spire of Black Ice. Only correctly solving this puzzle and 2 other dilemmas at 13.6 and 15.5, as well as retrieving the key from the Brine Dragon's hoard in Area 5.6, frees the Phantom Flyer Golem held behind the 3 portcullises. This magical beast is the only means of transport available to the PCs from the city that waits to the Fortress of Conclusion. If the PCs are so foolish as to saw away the cube's suspension webs, the black box falls away into darkness below, seemingly lost. In 33 days, Tanari, in Assiraak's service, retrieve the cube and resuspend it from the webbing with the aid of newly recruited wraith spiders. It takes at least a year longer before another winter white can be created to guard the cube, and by that time Assiraak may have already accomplished his baleful plans. Stat block: winter white. Area 10, Shattered Bridge. Box text: Time or some more destructive force has shattered this hanging span between one of the Cyclopean towers of stone and what was once a 3-way intersection. Only a few shards of stone now protrude over the misty abyss, pointing the way to where a similarly splintered surface is visible many hundreds of feet away. End box text: The bridge is dangerous. Anyone standing at the 3-way crossroads between towers 5, 6, and 7 has a 10% chance of accidentally stepping on a weak spot on the bridge. A character unlucky enough to find such infirm footing falls into the mists below unless he or she makes a dexterity check at a -4 penalty to catch a life-saving hold. Area 11, Weak bridge. Nothing distinguishes this bridge from any of the others that the PCs have already trod upon. However, in spite of Assiraak's localized stabilizing magics, this bridge's keystone has gone the way of many other unprotected portions of the city, decaying to dust. When the PCs reach the middle of the bridge, which stretches approximately 110 feet between towers 14 and 15, a segment of stone drops away from the bridge's center with a wrenching crack. Unavoidably, the two unsupported sections drop away from the center, each swinging down from its remaining point of connection on the two towers. PCs who are anywhere else on the bridge must first make a dexterity check with a -10 penalty in a desperate attempt to scrabble for a hold on the smooth stone surface of the falling bridge. If the first check is successful, a strength check at a -2 penalty is then required to determine if the PC can maintain his or her hold as the pendulum swing of the falling span is brought up short by the side of a tower. All those unable to somehow arrest their fall plunge into the darkness below and thence to the negative energy plane. Unfortunately for any PCs who manage to cling to the falling bridge, their woes are not yet over. A murder of negative fundamentals was roosting beneath the bridge, and its destruction brings out the whole nest of 10 to attack and harry PCs hanging by their fingernails to the side of the now limply hanging span or attempting to climb out. Those attempting to climb suffer a -35% modifier on any appropriate climbing skill. Thus, unskilled climbers have only a 5% chance to climb up unassisted. Characters attempting to defend themselves or strike back at the wheeling fundamentals make no headway in climbing. For each 10 feet a PC was out on the bridge when it broke, to a maximum of 50 feet, it takes one round to climb back up the hanging span to an archway. For example, if 40 feet along the bridge when it broke, it would take 4 rounds of uninterrupted effort to climb back up to safety. Regardless of the PC's actions, each dangling bridge remnant only remains attached to its tower for another D10 plus 4 rounds. At that point, the piece breaks away and tumbles silently into the darkness. Of course, any PCs who are still hanging on to the span are similarly plunged into the abyss. Stat block: 10 negative fundamentals. Area 12, Hollow Tower. None of the floor levels of this tower exist any longer. They've all fallen away into the darkness at its base. There is nothing to discover here, and if the PCs travel down to the base of the tower, they enter into the misty borders of the city that waits and risk accidentally penetrating into the negative energy plane. Area 12.1 and 12.2. 2 entries. Box text. The bridge leads northwest into an arched opening on the sleek side of a tower of gray stone and metal. The lintel of the arch is blank. Beyond the arch, there appears to be nothing but a vast cylindrical pit. End box text. Those looking into the tower see that their first impression is correct. If ever there were any floors here, they have long since fallen into the darkness of the tower's interior. Small points of flickering light mark windows that let the city's eerie light into the hollow space of the spire. One of the points of light is the single other bridge span connecting this tower to the rest of the city. There is no map of this tower, since there is no complexity or encounter. The box text is good for either entry. This tower once housed various merchant offices of the elite Moilian Traders Consortium. Area 13, Tower of the Forsaken One. This tower once housed the clergy who gave their faith to the terrible Tanari lord known as Orcus. For many decades, the decrees passed down from this tower were law in the streets of Moil. Unfortunately, observances, tariffs, and citizen obligations were chaotic in their announcement and application, even from one day to the next. Those who transgressed against the word of Orcus's clerics were quickly and brutally called to account in the Tower of Discipline, Tower 6. When the Moilians at the Tower of Mourning acted contrary to the explicit instructions of the evil clerics, a short war of assassination began. When things began to look grim for Orcus's clerics, they called upon the direct intervention of their terrible deity. Thus was the horrible curse of Orcus laid over the hapless city. The tower now contains only a single surviving floor. It is also the site of another of Assiraak's challenges. Assiraak gave it over to a powerful Dark Weaver, an outer planar arachnid-like entry introduced in the Planescape MC Appendix 2. at the center of whose dark web maze awaits another puzzle that must be solved to open the middle ensorcelled portcullis imprisoning the Phantom Flyer. See Area 16.7. The webs of the Dark Weaver are partially composed of shadow. They extend throughout the entire level, however it is not apparent at first that the initial shadowy conditions are the outline of a shadow web. The level's most distinctive feature is the stone maze put in by Assiraak. He has a penchant for such things. There are no windows on the exterior of this tower that might allow entry above, below, or on the mapped level. Area 13.1. Dark Entry. Box text. The tower at the end of this bridge is windowless and featureless, a dark finger of black stone unadorned with even the simplest of designs. Unlike many of the other towers, a door of rough granite blocks the entryway to this tower. On it is carved in bas relief what appears to be the head of a horned ram. There is a design or message scratched into the stone below the ram head, but the omnipresent frost blurs the image to the point of unreadability. End box text. The head carved into the stone door depicts Orcus. In the time of Orcus's power in Moil, the visage acted as a fell door warden. Even after the curse and the transformation of Moil into the city that waits, the door still possessed power to sway any transgressors, but with Orcus's later defeat and apparent demise, the visage here lost all its terror. The door opens with a gentle shove. If the frost is wiped away from the scratchings in the stone below the face, the following message, written in the common tongue of Greyhawk, is revealed. Wear the Weaver in her lair. D. This short scrawl was scratched into the stone by Desatiso as a warning to any future explorers against the creature inhabiting the tower. Desatiso just escaped with his life and was unnerved enough to scratch this message into stone as he was leaving. Since scratching a message into stone with a dagger point is no easy task, the message is short and perhaps not overly useful to the PCs, although it should reassure the characters that they are probably on the right track. Area 13.2. In the Gloom Web. Box text. Darkness presses in upon you like a palpable mantle. Two hallways diverge here, one heading straight forward from the entrance, while the other turns to the right. It is impossible to see down either passage for more than 15 feet. Your vision seems to be almost physically restricted by strands of tangible darkness. An eerie, oily chill caresses your face and hands as you brush these cords of shadow. End box text. The outer portions of the Dark Weaver's web reduce all vision to 1/2 normal. Magical devices or spells allowing vision in darkness are similarly affected. Strands of the gloom web easily give way to a creature moving in the tower, and light shining on the web makes the strands fade into shadows, although they twine and slither away like dark snakes. At this point, the PCs can still turn back without any difficulty. If they travel even 10 feet farther into the gloom in either direction, a decision to move back toward the entrance cannot be acted upon quite so easily. The strands do not retreat from the light any longer. They cling as if to prevent escape. Anyone specifically trying to move back toward the entrance is reduced to half normal movement and, more importantly, must make a successful saving throw versus spell to force a way through the clinging cords. Those who fail this save can only move deeper into the maze. Those who come to the dead end at 13.3 can backtrack just far enough to move deeper into the maze. A light spell destroys a 10-foot cube of this web, but the illumination dissipates instantly. A continual light destroys 1d6 10-foot cubes of the webs before similarly dissipating. It's not continual here. Very powerful light effects, such as Sunray, destroy 2d6 10-foot cubes of the web. The effects of magical light upon the Dark Weaver herself are explained in the Area 13.6 entry. Area 13.3. Remains of a Feast. Box text. A walled-off dead end reveals itself from the darkness. Strands of shadow-like cobwebs thickly entwine two humanoid figures. The figures lie broken and supine on the floor, hideously emaciated beneath the black threads, as if they had died by having their interior organs and fluids drawn out in some terrible bloodletting. End box text. The Darkweaver in Area 13.6 requires sustenance every so often. To this end, Assiraak dispatches his Tanari servants to procure an occasional humanoid to sate the creature's hunger. Those delivered sometimes are able to put up a good fight, but so far the pseudo-arachnid has been able to successfully feed. The Darkweaver usually allows the husks of its prey to litter the floor of its lair. However, these two brothers were able to flee to this point before the Darkweaver caught up to them. Neither of these bodies has spontaneously animated due to dark intrusion. The restraining cobwebs upon the bodies simply evaporate in the presence of prolonged illumination. A search reveals nothing other than a single deep wound on each, the point where the Darkweaver inserted her proboscis to feed. PCs should get the hint that a similar fate may befall them if they prove insufficient to the task of confronting the Darkweaver in her lair. Area 13.4. Moving deeper in. Box text. The twinning strands of web-like darkness press closer. Where before the oily cords writhed into shadow under the application of direct sunlight, they now teem against you like a coarse sackcloth of umbra. It is almost an effort to breathe through the thickening cords of shadow. The shadow webs skim across your skin like the half-felt legs of scurrying insects of ice. So far, however, your forward progress has not been hindered. End box text. From this point on into the maze up to Area 13.6, the webs are even thicker and more confining than before. The thickness of the webs reduces all vision to 1/4 normal. As hinted at in the box text, those moving further into the web are not hindered, but those attempting to move back out must make successful saving throws versus spell or become disoriented. Those failing their saving throws travel deeper into the web, toward Area 13.6, no matter which route they pick. Even characters who make successful saving throws are still slowed until the Darkweaver in Area 13.6 is slain. Area 13.5. A trap for the unwary. Box text. The black strands give way, revealing a statue set against the west wall. The statue is carved of some glossy black stone and depicts a man in a flowing robe. The head of the statue is covered by a stone hood, and the features are obscured. However, a curling beard is easily visible, descending almost all the way to the statue's belt. Twin pinpricks of reflected light gleam where the statue's eyes probably should be. End box text. This statue is nothing more than a distraction for the PCs, a trap meant for those with overactive curiosities. A casual investigation reveals that it is nothing more than it appears, a stone statue with gemstone eyes, carnelians worth 50 gold each. Prying loose the gems does not activate the trap on the statue. The arms of the statue extend forward and the hands are cupped together, as if offering or receiving something. The hands are currently empty. A copper plate on the base of the statue reads, in Moilian, "Quench the thirst of Golnar, and your reward will be great." This item once resided in the Tower of Chance, but Assiraak moved it here and perverted its magic, so that the only reward it now gives is death. Pouring water or any other liquid into the cupped hands activates the trap. If this is done, the statue partially animates, bringing its cupped hands to its mouth as if to drink. Instead, it seems to blow upon the cupped liquid, which is magically transformed into a glowing reddish poison gas that streams over the fingers to fill 8 10-foot cubes. Anyone caught in the area must attempt saving throws versus poison. Characters who fail perish from the choking gas. Those who make successful saving throws still take 1d10 points of damage from the caustic vapors. The air clears after one turn. The statue resets to its previous position once it has acted as described above. Filling the hands with the same or a different liquid has the same baleful effect on the second and all subsequent trials. Area 13.6. Lair of the Darkweaver. Box text. The webs of darkness are thickest here. It becomes difficult to move in any direction, and your every movement drags against the darkness, as if you were mired in ebony molasses. Suddenly you hear a sound like dry leaves scraping on a stony surface. Something is stirring at the very heart of darkness. Sibilant whisperings accompany the shape that briefly resolves from blackness before once again disappearing. Something large, dark, and many-legged. End box text. Display illustration 40. Here at the web's center, travelers must make successful saving throws versus spells or become held. They are slowed even on a successful roll. The darkness is absolute, as impenetrable as a darkness spell, and normal vision is curtailed. The hold, slow, and darkness are permanently dispelled only upon death of the Darkweaver that has taken this central area of the tower as her lair. The webs regenerate at a variable rate. See entry 13.2. If the darkness is not dispelled, the PCs will need to be extremely lucky to find the mechanism on the ceiling that controls the second portcullis at area 16.7. Once the PCs are within the chamber and either held or slowed, the Darkweaver attacks. It first immobilizes and disorients its victims to the greatest extent possible using its confusion, sleep, and suggestion abilities. If the PCs slay the creature, the darkness of the webs fades to the normal gloom of an unlighted room. PC light sources suddenly brighten to illuminate to their normal ranges. This should allow the design of the ceiling 10 feet above to come into sudden view. A lever of dark metal that rests nearest the position of a line carved into the black stone. At the other possible lever position, a plus sign has been carved into the stone. Next to the lever, a plaque of copper reads in the PC's common tongue, "This is the mechanism you seek. Permanent activation will not only achieve one of your goals, but also set in motion events of great magnitude." If the PCs pull the lever to the positive side, then pull it back to its initial position, the positive lights up with a green glow. This indicates that the second portcullis at area 16.7 has opened. If the lever is grasped and pulled to the positive sign and left at that position, a click is heard. Around following the click, the floors, walls, and ceiling of the chamber, and entire tower, begin to buck and rock with extreme violence. On a successful wisdom check, one PC can attempt to move the lever back to its original position quickly to derail the trap. Otherwise, events proceed dangerously. All those standing on the floor must make a dexterity check each round to stay on their feet. A horrible bass booming begins throbbing throughout the entire structure. Every time the characters are thrown to the floor, it takes a full round and another successful dexterity check to regain their feet. Any dexterity check missed by more than 10 points means the PC suffers 1d4 points of damage from the falling debris. Allow the PCs to move at their base movement rate times 10 feet per round towards the entrance. The PCs have 9 rounds to escape from the tower. A character with a movement rate of 12 who begins running immediately toward the exit along the quickest route possible takes a little less than 5 rounds to reach safety, if she can keep her feet despite the rolling, pitching floor. At the beginning of the 10th round, the perturbations reach their climax, causing the foundation of the entire tower to crumble, sending the whole thing straight down into the mist like a gigantic express elevator to hell, or in this case, the negative energy plane. The connecting bridge breaks at 13.1, allowing the tower a smooth plunge into the black mists, like a pen held vertical but then suddenly allowed to drop through relaxed fingers. This might make a good visual example to any PCs who make it out in time to witness the plunge. Any PC still in the tower has a round of sudden stomach-clenching vertigo as the tower falls away. After that, the tower has fully plunged into the negative energy plane and the PCs are subject to its effects. Stat block. Darkweaver. Area 14. Tower of Test. While the city of Moil endured upon the face of the world, it was a powerful entity, and no other city-state dared face its might. This was in part due to Moil's direct patronage from Orcus, but while faith in a visible power proved valuable, none can gainsay the importance of a strong standing army. Certainly, the worthies of Moil felt that a mighty fighting force was vital to their well-being. The Moilians felt that a mighty army can only be forged and maintained through constant testing of the most grueling, exhaustive, and exacting sort. Thus, the Tower of Test. Beneath this towering spire, levies of crack troops were quartered in the numerous deeps and labyrinthine quarters. Barracks, armories, drill fields, kitchens, and other troop necessities were housed here out of sight. It was in the tower above that most of the elite soldiers were allowed to test for advancement into the exalted Moilian Home Guard. Those who graduated into this elite force were usually referred to as exaltants. A troop of exaltants on the battlefield was usually enough to assure that the outcome of any conflict would be in Moil's favor. Such was their mettle and prowess. That's all in the past now. The corridors below the Tower of Test were never transferred to the demiplane, and every level within the tower crumbled away with time, save 2 that were preserved by Assiraak. With only slight modification, Assiraak allowed these 2 levels to remain as fitting challenges to those who sought to complete the route suggested by the rhyme in Area 1. Refer to Tower 2, the Tower of Mourning, for details on unmapped levels and unkeyed rooms. Only 2 levels of the Tower of Test are detailed on Map 8, levels 1 and 2. The PCs are most likely to arrive on the lower level before ascending to the upper level, and thence to the Dreaming Tower, Tower 15. Area 14.1. Entry. Box text. The thin trestle connects to the side of a tower. An open archway beckons with its quiet darkness. Above the archway, the unmistakable symbols of martial implements have been inscribed to the metallic surface: a sword, an axe, a gauntleted fist, and a cocked crossbow. End box text. Those entering through the archway trigger an old enchantment that causes a sound of war horns to call out. Of old, this was a noble, rousing noise. However, in the present straits of this necrotic city, it comes across as a lonely death knell. It also serves to alert Ferocles in room 14.7 that at long last he may have another martial challenger before him. Area 14.2. Walk of Glory. Box text. A corridor curves away in 2 directions, following the periphery of the tower. Beneath the frost, the floor is tiled with plates alternately showing various objects of warfare in red and white. The walls are bare black metal, but hanging upon them at 10-foot intervals in both directions are what appear to be trophies of a most grisly sort: human heads mounted on boards. End box text. Of all the trials that were once contained in the Tower of Test, the most difficult and most prestigious test was single combat against the Lord High Exultant. See room 14.7. This test was only administered if one wished to replace the old Lord High Exultant and become the new one. Most who rose in the ranks high enough to take this test failed, and their heads are on display here in the 20-foot wide corridors throughout this level. PCs who examine the heads find that they are mounted on hardwood. A copper plaque beneath each records the name of the vanquished in the tongue of the Moilians. Some typically Moilian names include Daelis, Gordon, Vaircreath, Suidlo, etc. Glass orbs have replaced the eyes, and the interior of each head has been stuffed with sand. A fine glaze of frost covers the features and crusts the hair of the unregarded trophies. Area 14.3. Gus the Talking Head. Box text. At the juncture of a rounded T intersection, a large head is mounted on the north wall. Unlike the other heads, this shaggy-haired head twists and writhes on the board as if it possesses a body caught in the steel of the wall and seeks to break free from the unyielding substance. Its eyes roll in its sockets, and a harsh grunting moan escapes at intervals from the thing as it attempts to squirm free of its mount. End box text. The copper plate below this head reads Gustaeth. Of all the trophies mounted in the Tower of Test, 3 were infused with the energy of unlife by the Dark Intrusion. In its horrid animation, it has regained some memory of its former existence, and thus cries in pain and forever seeks to free itself from what it believes to be a restraining wall, not understanding that it possesses no body behind the wall. When Assiraak came upon this creature, he told the animated head that if it would direct infrequent passers-by to the first door of the 6 criterion, Assiraak would one day return to free it from the wall. As such, when the head spies the PCs, it begins to call out, in Moilian, "The door! Take the door to the south. That is what you must do. But for this gem of knowledge I have bestowed upon you, you must release me from the wall. See, I am most cruelly stuck here. Pry me loose so I could flex my fingers once more and feel the breeze on my toes." The door the head refers to is the one leading to room 14.6. If the PCs demonstrate to the hand that it merely hung upon the wall and possesses no body, what sanity the creature has left departs it forever. Henceforth, it merely screams and moans. If the PCs question Gus, they can discover the name of the Tower of Test, and that the 6 criterion are tests designed to determine if a battle with the High Lord Exultant is warranted. Those who survive the tests are fit for the combat. The head knows the name of the current Lord High Exultant, Ferocles, but hasn't seen him in over 100 years and thus assumes him to be dead. The head also remembers Desitisso's passage through this area. If prodded, it will talk about that encounter. A handsome fellow was he, with a scent of wizardry upon him. He wouldn't free me from this wall either, even after I warned him about the tests. If asked, Gus informs the PCs that it was a being encased in ice named Assiraak who asked him to give directions. Assiraak's spirit can inhabit any undead creature of his choosing within the fortress and the city. His favorite undead to possess is a winter wight. The head poses no threat to the PCs and can only be considered dangerous if someone were to stand close enough to be bitten. Gus can be slain with little difficulty by the PCs, should they wish to do so. If the party turns here and approaches the tower's center, they enter the testing zone. Within this area, within 80 feet of the tower's central core, no spell, magical effect, or psionic power that augments movement or allows a special mode of travel will function. Such effects include jump, spider climb, fly, haste, dimension door, pass wall, teleport, phase door, and many others. Area 14.4, Trophy Horn. Box text. Against the inner wall of the curve, a plaque is affixed with a copper plate below it. Protruding from the plaque is what looks like a blackened and battered horn some 4 feet long. The horn looks slim and tapers to a sharp point. A faint blue-black radiance coats the horn, speaking of pestilence and dread. End box text. The copper plate below the horn reads, Horn of an Astral Dreadnought. This inscription is true, though the Astral Dreadnought was not killed when the trophy was taken, an error that eventually proved the undoing of the hunter in question. The horn hung on this wall for many years, harmless. With the coming of the Dark Intrusion, the horn is harmless no longer. Anyone who comes within 5 feet of the horn must save verse spells at a -4 penalty or suffer the effects of a fear spell for 1d4 hours. Anyone who actually touches the horn must save verse death magic or forget all the events of the past day. If a magical item, except an artifact, is touched to the horn, the item must save verse disintegration or have all its enchantment permanently stripped from it. All in all, the horn is no good. The horn has a baleful effect upon anyone who carries it, even if it is safely tucked away in a bag of holding or similar item. For every 24 hours the horn remains among a character's possessions, a random magical item also possessed by the hero must save verse disintegration. If it fails, the item loses all enchantment, though the owner may not realize this until he or she tries to use the item. Area 14.5, Trophy Hand. Box text. Against the outer wall of the curve, a plaque is affixed with a copper plate below it. Protruding from the plaque is a large human left hand. The hand is bodiless, yet it slowly flexes and wriggles. End box text. The copper plate below the hand reads, The Hand of Tyr. No, this is not really the hand of the god Tyr. When Moil was yet inhabited, the trophy was put up as a sort of joke for those who might know the story of the deity who, according to legend, lost his hand to Fenris Wolf. The hand actually came from some lowly criminal who plea bargained his sentence from death to mere dismemberment. At the time, all who saw the hand got quite a chuckle. At present, the hand may still bring a few chuckles, though more out of pity than real mirth. Those who believe the hand to truly be that of Tyr are not disappointed to discover that the hand truly does possess power from beyond the grave. It is animated. Unfortunately, it is animated by the Dark Intrusion. If the hand is removed from the plaque, it crawls around on its fingers, following the party wherever they may travel in the future to the best of its ability, like a gruesome pet. The hand possesses a strong grip. 1800. Characters who attempt to attach the hand to an old or new stub are unsuccessful. The hand painlessly grafts itself in place. Unfortunately, the hand is undead and slowly kills its host over 24 hours unless it is again chopped off. During that time, the owner has full use of the hand. The owner enjoys a strength of 1800 in the left hand only. Stat block: Tyr's undead hand. Area 14.6, Standing Spires. Test of Deftness. Box text. Pillars of iron stand in thick profusion in this chamber, nearly scraping the 20-foot-high ceiling. The pillars are so thickly packed that it is difficult to see the far wall, but they don't appear to be arranged in any particular order. Some stand so close as to be touching, while others are far enough apart to allow a wending, twisting passage. The pillars are 4-sided, approximately a foot to a side, and do not appear to possess any inscription or decoration. End box text. This was the first of what was once 6 tests designed to weed out mere petitioners from the outstanding few who were qualified to go one-on-one with the Lord High Exaltant. With the coming of the curse, only 5 of the 6 tests still function. The unkeyed room on the map is empty, although the players may see threat enough in this if they know they are to face a series of tests. This first test is a test of dexterity involving the dodging of falling iron spans. The pillars are arranged such that if a single pillar were to topple, the rest would soon follow in a horrendous clanging, chaotic domino effect, easily smashing any soft-skinned humanoid so unfortunate as to be caught underneath. Further, many of the pillars have been set to fall towards the walls, and as they fall, they scrape along the ceiling and walls, so travel through the room by clinging to a wall or even walking on the roof, via slippers of spider climbing for example, is equally as dangerous as traveling on the floor. The pillars are magically keyed to begin toppling when at least one living being is halfway situated between the 2 doors. At this point, the pillars begin falling in a cacophony of smashing crashes, tracing chaotic lines. Those caught in the room are forced to jump, dodge, scoot, and run to avoid being smashed flat by one of these weighty pillars. This involves 3 dexterity checks of increasing difficulty, the first at -2, then -4, and -6, before all the pillars have toppled. The DM is encouraged to describe each close encounter with a falling span with a dramatic flair. Anyone hit by a span takes 3d10 points of damage and suffers an additional -2 penalty for his or her next dexterity check. All the spans have fallen, and the room returns to quiet after only 1 minute of frantic activity. The room magically resets itself after the space of 1 week. Area 14.7. Slick Portal. Test of Strength. Box text. This chamber stands empty. The only exits are the archway where you entered and a sliding panel of gleaming silver at the opposite end. The surface of the portal doesn't bear the slightest trace of the ubiquitous frost that coats almost every surface here in this strange city. A small handle in the panel's bottom, however, seems frozen in a block of solid ice. In fact, a bulge of ice like a frozen wave lies at the foot of the panel. End box text. The panel is a heavy sheet of well-tempered steel that rests on a pair of vertical tracks. Anyone looking at it can tell that it opens vertically. An ancient enchantment renders the panel immune to magical attacks of any kind. Knock spells have no effect. The panel's surface is both perfectly smooth and coated with a thin film of oil. The surface is almost frictionless. A few ice crystals formed on the panel, but slid right off, forming the ridge of ice on the floor. A hand or implement placed against the panel slides right off. The only way to open the door is to grasp the handle and lift. A character can easily free the handle by chipping away the ice or applying some heat. The handle is just large enough to allow a human-sized creature to grasp it with one hand. It takes at least 18 points of strength to lift the panel. Characters with less strength cannot even budge the panel. Once opened, someone must hold up the panel while the party exits the chamber. The party can batter down the panel. It has an armor class of -2 and can sustain 80 points of damage. Only blunt or piercing weapons can damage the panel. Area 14.8. Music of the Spheres. Test of Forbearance. Box text. Descending from the ceiling are myriad spheres of both mundane and exotic colors. Vermilion, saffron, hazel, azure, mauve, and chartreuse, to name just a few. The spheres measure approximately 2 feet in diameter and hang between 3 and 6 feet below the 20-foot-high ceiling on chains of copper. A faint hum is barely audible on the threshold of this chamber. End box text. Each sphere is magically enchanted to produce a single clear tone. Unfortunately, the tones were selected to create the maximum discordant noise achievable. The low hum heard before entry can be localized as coming from the spheres. When a living being enters the chamber, all the spheres begin emitting their own characteristic tone at a relatively low volume. At first, this is merely unpleasant, but for every foot a living being either penetrates further into the room, from either direction, the volume of the cacophonous blare increases. It is approximately 70 feet from door to door, following a straight path across the chamber. Whenever a living being penetrates 35 feet into the chamber, midway between the doors, the din becomes so oppressively loud that it crosses the line from onerous to dangerous, and from there only gets louder. Anyone in the chamber must begin making constitution checks every 20 seconds, thrice per round. The first check suffers a -2 penalty, the next -4, and all subsequent checks -6. Characters can only move at half their maximum movement because of the debilitating effects of the high decibel noise. A silent spell will not block this effect, but any character who is actually deaf will be immune. Anyone missing a check falls to the floor in a vain attempt to stop his or her ears with clutching hands. Keep track of the PC's location within the chamber, as it will become important. Once a character is overcome by the sound and falls to the floor, the PC only has a number of rounds equal to 1/3 of his or her constitution score in rounds to get out of the room or die of a massive brain hemorrhage. Once overcome, the PC in question can try to make a heroic effort to rise and run at a stagger from the chamber with a successful constitution check at a -10 penalty. It is possible that the less hardy in the party might need to be carried from the room by others more resistant. Those who make it from the room require a full turn to rest, but are otherwise not permanently damaged by this experience. Area 14.9. Blinking Lights. Test of Intelligence. Box text. This chamber is bare but for a golden frost-rimmed plaque inset into the far door, which itself appears to be a sealed iron valve. The plaque contains 5 small gems. Brief flashes of light color the gems, causing them to flash in an apparent random fashion. End box text. The valve is closed and contains the same resistance to teleportation, pass wall, and similar effects that the entire area possesses. The door doesn't open to any force save a successful test of intelligence embodied in the flashing gems. Those who take the time to study the gemstones can make a wisdom check to note that a particular pattern of lights flash across the 5 gems. Each is a different color, 1 gem at a time, for a total of 20 to 30 flashes. Each gemstone flashes its color between 4 and 5 times in a particular sequence, after which there is a 30-second pause. Following the 30-second pause, a pattern that looks awfully similar to the first sequence repeats. However, once the pattern repeats the second time, an entirely new sequence of flashes lights up the gems after only a few seconds pause. If a full 30 seconds pass again without actions on part of the characters, the second sequence of flashes repeats, to be quickly replaced by a third, entirely new sequence, and so on. If a rogue studies the gems and makes a successful find traps roll, the character notices that the gems are depressible, though no obvious trap seems to be triggered if the gems are depressed. The gems look as if they'll immediately spring back to their formal position if pressed. The test is simply this: a hero must observe the sequence of the flashing lights. When the sequence ends, the character must depress the gems in the same sequence. Some deduction and perhaps experimentation is probably necessary to determine the proper course of action. 3 successful intelligence checks allow a character to successfully complete the sequence, at which time the iron valve slides open, allowing passage to the chamber beyond. For each failed intelligence check in the trio, a character receives 2d4 points of damage from a jolt of electricity upon touching the last gem in sequence attempted. Someone failing all 3 checks takes 6d4 points of damage. The door does not slide open if the character fails even 1 check. Never fear, a new sequence soon flashes across the gems, allowing the characters to try their hands as many times as necessary. Area 14.10. Scything Blades. Test of Logic. Box text. At the northwestern end of this wide curving chamber is a spiral staircase of white stone providing a passage up. However, suspended in the intervening space between the entrance and the stairway are hundreds of curved blades on vanishingly thin metal wires. Moving with almost complete silence, these blades oscillate back and forth in unsynchronized swings. The swinging blades momentarily part in such a way as to clear a path through to the other side of the chamber, but then a heartbeat later, a deadly blade scythes through an area that just seemed safe. End box text. Those with patience and wit who take the time to study the various oscillations of the blades can puzzle out the pattern of swinging blades and map out a path through the razor-sharp moving maze. To successfully map a path, a character must make 2 intelligence checks and 1 wisdom check. None of these checks are assessed a penalty if all the checks are successful. However, with each check missed, each subsequent check is an additional -4 penalty. A character who succeeds all 3 checks slips through the room on a predetermined path planned out from the beginning. Each check a character misses correlates to an error in judgment, which equals a faulty path through the scything blades. One failed check means that the character has put him or herself in the path of 1d4 blades, or for flying characters, the razor-thin wire. 2 failed checks means the character is hit by 2d4 blades, and 3 failed checks means the character is hit by 4d4 sharpened pendulums. Each blade causes 1d10 points of damage. A lenient DM may rule that a character who is on the wrong path has a chance to dodge each blade with a successful saving throw versus breath weapon at a -3 penalty as it swings down. Those who successfully negotiate the path from the entrance to the stairs discover that the spiral steps lead 40 feet up to room 14.7. Area 14.11, Field of Glory. Box text. This level of the tower is almost completely bare, an echoing space tiled with wide slabs of white marble. The walls of the massive chamber seem to be the curved walls of the tower itself. Swords, axes, polearms, dirks, spiked gauntlets, and other esoteric weaponry hang at intervals of 5 feet along the wall in a display that traces the entire circumference of the room. Besides the apex of a spiral stair in the northern portion of the chamber, 3 curved walls block direct view of a circular area in the center of the chamber, from which leaks a dim violet glow. End box text. This area served as the battleground for those who wished to pursue the seminal horror of engaging in one-on-one combat with the Lord High Exultant. To this end, the chamber was hung with all manner of weaponry, available to those who would put their mettle to the test. To this day, the weapons remain hanging here. The characters can find any normal handheld melee weapon they can think of in this chamber, otherwise, merely roll for a random weapon on any of the various weapon charts from the player's handbook, DM screen, or arms and equipment guide. Pherocles was the last of the Lord High Exultants, and his fate was the same as most of the rest of the populace of Moil. He perished in his sleep and became a Moilian zombie. However, Assiraak found that he had use for such martial prowess and rejuvenated Pherocles to the point where he now remains constantly animated. In the process, Pherocles became empowered far beyond normal Moilian zombies. Now, the Exultant has eternity to practice his martial arts and weapons kata, honing them to perfection. In return for this boon, Pherocles is bound to pit himself against any transgressors of his dojo, this tower level. If Pherocles is forewarned of the party's presence by the horn call from Area 14.1 or the music of the spheres in Room 14.8, he stands ready just behind the walls of Area 14.12 to spring out at the first sound of entry into his chamber. He appears as a leathery-skinned human who is illuminated with an eerie violet glow. This is a side effect of the necromantic energization that allows him permanent animation. He is wrapped in a dimly glowing vapor extending from him in all directions to a distance of 20 feet. This is also the range at which his life-draining abilities function. Assiraak has taught Pherocles the party's common tongue, albeit an archaic dialect, so that he can challenge the party as soon as they confront him. Box text. Stand fast, you who journey into the city that waits. If your desire be to pass me to the dreaming tower, then your worth you must prove. A champion select, one of sufficient strength of arm to contest me, the Lord High Exultant of the Tower of Test. If victorious your champion emerges, all may pass. If defeat is the fate of your champion, then all must turn away, never to return. Choose. End box text. Nothing restricts the party from picking a champion to fight Pherocles singly, but the Exultant is no dummy. The odds are against anyone in a conflict where the sides are not equal. If the party attacks en masse, Pherocles defends himself to the best of his ability. If the party picks a champion to fight the Exultant and the champion loses, Pherocles admonishes the remaining PCs to be on their way. Regardless of whether they comply, they cannot pass Pherocles as long as he, quote, lives. If the party defeats the Exultant singly or all together, nothing prevents them from traveling to the treacherous bridge detailed above under Area 11. Pherocles' statistics can be found in the next section. Area 14.12, Pherocles' Sensorium. Box text. Walled off by 3 sections of circular dark stone is a large space tiled with ice-glazed green stone. In the very center of the circle space is a mat, 10 feet square, lying on the stone. Around the mat are 4 dimly violet glowing stones, each positioned at one edge of the mat. End box text. Pherocles spends at least 12 hours out of his 24 on this mat in contemplation of the mysteries of his art. At the same time, the enchanted stones energize his body so that he can remain animate even without the nourishing presence of living beings. These stones, created by Assiraak, emit a necromantic radiation capable of saturating living or once-living objects. This radiation has the effect of linking the saturated being with the negative energy plane. For Ferocles, an undead Moilian zombie, it means he can operate indefinitely as long as he gets his regular fix. For a living being, the radiation from the stones causes a sharp pain after one round's exposure. An unaccountable feeling of dread also surfaces, along with a desire to move out of the glow of the stones. An actual link to the negative energy plane is forged at the end of the second round. At this point, the life force of the affected being is drawn forth in one continuous discharge, killing the being and transforming him or her into a free-willed undead in one turn. The newly formed undead retains the hit dice and hit points that he or she had upon, quote, death, as well as skills, proficiencies, spells, and class abilities, except for paladins, who lose all associated class abilities and become undead fighters. In fact, someone so affected may not even immediately realize his or her new condition. With the passage of time, the individual will find that he or she does not require sleep, rest, food, or even air. The character's heart does not beat, and his or her skin takes on a waxy pallor. Wounds do not heal naturally, and healing spells cause as much damage as they were meant to heal. The individual is also subject to turning as if an undead of the appropriate hit dice. If you wish, consult the Requiem Grim Harvest box set from the Ravenloft setting for rules on undead player characters. As the Lord High Exultant, Ferocles has in his possession the Blade Perilous. He will use the blade in any conflict that comes upon him. Other than the blade, Ferocles possesses no items of value in his sensorium or on his person. Stat block: Ferocles, Lord High Exultant, Moilian Zombie. Area 15. Dreaming Tower. The power of dream was very important to the ancient citizens of Moil. Through their dreams, the Moilians believed that the powers of mind were unlocked. They believed their dream selves could travel across the face of their world and others into times long past and also peer into possible futures. To this end, the Dreaming Tower was created so that dreams could be studied, enhanced, and directed by using a drug that promoted lucid dreaming. Rare was the Moilian who did not visit this tower at least once for magical dream enhancement therapy. With the advent of Orcus's Curse of Sleep, the strengthened dream consciousness of the city's citizenry survived beyond the death of their corporeal bodies. Thus was born the Vestage. See the Maps and Monsters book. Since this tower was in part responsible for its origin, the Vestige most often lingers here. The Dreaming Tower can be considered its lair. It is very sensitive to any disturbance within the tower and is automatically drawn back to the tower if anyone enters. Refer to Tower 2, the Tower of Mourning, for details on unmapped levels and unkeyed rooms. Only one level of the Dreaming Tower is detailed on Map 8, the highest bridge level. No matter how much the party looks, they do not discover entrances to levels above or below these two, excepting windows on the outside of the tower itself that provide access only to an empty tower shell. Area 15.1. Entrance. Box text. The bridge leads south into a 20-foot wide arched opening on the sleek side of a tower of gray stone and metal. The lintel of the arch is inscribed with a half-moon of inlaid silver, with a sprinkling of stars picked out with small gemstone flecks, although the layer of frost covering the carving makes it difficult to see clearly. Beyond the arch, darkness and silence prevail. End box text. The moon and stars identified this place to the citizens of Moil. They possess no special qualities, and the gemstone flecks are too small to be valuable. From the moment the party passes through this entrance, or any other access such as a window, the Vestige becomes aware of their presence and begins moving steadily toward the Dreaming Tower. Area 15.2. Interrogatorium. Box text. This very large room has one wide aperture in the wall, allowing the strobing light of the outer city to illuminate what looks to be an abandoned barracks. Beds consisting of a wooden frame, a thick mattress, and woolen blankets are arranged in orderly rows down the curve of the chamber. A series of closed metallic cupboards are attached to the inner wall, each showing various symbols beneath the layer of frost that covers everything. End box text. Here is where the common citizen of Moil would come for dream enhancement therapy as practiced by the dream mystics. The dream mystics were only too happy to apply the fruits of their research to those who sought it, for a substantial fee, of course. The beds allowed clients a place to slumber and dream in comfort and under the watchful eye of an attending mystic. The dream mystics induced sleep in their clients by preparing a sleeping agent from the stores in the metal cabinets found in this room, mixed with lucidafen. See room 15-3. There are 10 metal cabinets, each of which is locked. Each cabinet holds a variety of different sporifics, 10 in each cabinet, but all of them will induce deep sleep. The containers range from glass vials to clay bowls, and the consistency of each drug varies widely. Use the table provided in room 7.11 if desired. Each swallow or application causes deep sleep for 1d10 plus 1 hours. No amount of shaking or striking will awaken someone in this drugged slumber. Once a particular type of sporific's sleep time has been defined, the time will not vary for that substance. Each container holds 4 doses. Downing more than 1 dose calls for a saving throw versus poison with a -1 penalty per additional dose. If the saving throw fails, the character suffers 2d10 points of damage per additional dose. If the saving throw succeeds, the character still suffers 1d10 points of damage per additional dose. In either case, the character also sleeps for an additional 1d10 plus 1 hours per extra dose. In a bed pulled up against the south wall, one of the clients remains concealed under the covers. If the covers are pulled back, a Moilian zombie is revealed. Stat block, Moilian zombie. Area 15.3, Lucidafen stores. The wooden door to this chamber is well locked with a -30% chance to pick, but not trapped. A copper plate on the door reads Lucidafen stores in Moilian script. Box text. This large room appears to have once been filled with dozens of freestanding metal cabinets. Some cataclysm has tumbled them all to the floor, where they still lie, dented, twisted, and even broken. Engraved upon the far wall is a half-moon of inlaid silver measuring fully 20 feet across and a sprinkling of stars picked out with small gemstone flecks. End box text. Lucidafen was a special drug developed by the Moilian dream mystics to enhance the realism and length of imbibers' dreams. The drug also allowed those who desired to direct their own dreams to take a personal hand in designing the landscapes, themes, plots, and characters of each and every one of their dreams. Lucidafen was a fashionable addiction in Moil, and in fact, the drug possesses real addictive qualities. The tumbled metal cabinets, 30 in total, are all normally locked, although 10 have split open and their contents, Lucidafen in glass vials, are smashed, spilling glass splinters across the floor. If the characters search the remaining cabinets, roll a 1d20 to determine how many intact cabinets must be searched before the party turns up the one unbroken vial of Lucidafen remaining in this chamber. This vial contains 10 doses of the luminescent, faintly glowing red Lucidafen, each dose marked by a line on the glass vial. Even though the vial has been kept preserved by the cold, the passage of many centuries have had a few deleterious effects upon the compound. For the drug to have any effect at all, the imbiber needs to fall asleep in some manner within 1 hour of ingestion. Each dose has a 20% chance to act as a lethal poison, unless the character who drank it makes a successful saving throw versus poison at a -2 penalty. And the dose has a 30% chance to be completely ineffective. That leaves a 50% chance that the Lucidafen functions as designed. The dreamer has complete control of his or her dream, plus a 75% chance to learn an answer to some difficult puzzle. Such an answer may be revealed in cryptic or symbolic dream form. If you wish, each dose of Lucidafen can have a chance, DM determines, to propel the imbiber into the Nightmare Court described in the Ravenloft box supplement The Nightmare Lands. Unfortunately, each dose taken by the same individual also has a 1 in 6 chance to prove addictive. If it does, the user is unable to sleep without taking another dose of Lucidafen for each rest period. If the character cannot get Lucidafen, lack of sleep slowly erodes his or her effectiveness until he or she is completely useless. Consider this a cumulative -1 penalty on all ability checks, saving throws, and attack rolls for each 2 days without sleep. Unless a remove curse, heal, or similar powerful magic is cast upon the character, he or she dies after suffering this condition for 2 months. Area 15.4, Fractured Floor. Box text. This massive chamber is dimly but erratically lit through a wide opening in the wall to the south. Some destructive force has smashed a rough hole in its stone floor. Cracked, splintered edges of the hole trace a chasm more than 100 feet wide from east to west, and perhaps half that from north to south. The chasm lays bare the massive support column of iron and stone occupying the center of the tower. Your eyes are drawn to trace the line of the wide column down into the lightless shell of the lower tower, truly a Stygian plunge, until darkness swallows its lower extent completely. Revealed through the shattered remains of the floor is a small circular platform 30 feet below the level of the rest of this chamber, attached to the side of the support column. The light is insufficient to provide positive identification to the dim objects just visible upon the platform. End box text. This chamber is where the vestige is most often drawn in its wanderings through the city it once knew as Moil. Not coincidentally, Assiraak has placed one of the mechanisms necessary to release the Phantom Flyer in room 16.7 on the platform. Anyone approaching within 5 feet of the edge of the fractured floor, about 5 feet square, stands a 50% chance of causing a weakened section of floor to break, tipping anyone who does not make a successful saving throw versus breath weapon into the chasm, and hence a long fall into the mists at the base of the tower, finally depositing the poor sod into the negative energy plane. Repeat the check for breakage each round the character remains near the edge. Area 15.5, Suspended Platform. Box text. This platform of stone juts out over the black abyss below, attached to the tower's central support column only on its northern end. The extensive edges of the shattered chamber above are picked out by flickering light, but below the jagged edge there is only chill darkness. The platform is traced with various decorative inlays of red stone surrounding a 3-foot-tall stone dais. Securely fastened to the stone dais is an hourglass filled with blue sand. A message is engraved into the stone next to the hourglass in the same red stone as decorates the platform itself. Display illustration 41. The engraved message is scribed in the PC's common tongue and reads, "When the sand runs out, bring the glass about." The frame of the hourglass is affixed to the stone of the dais by a thick rod sunk into the stone. The glass can be swung end over end, after which a click is heard and the glass cannot swing so again until all the sand has dropped into the lower chamber. Once all the sand has fallen past the waist of the glass, which strangely enough requires an hour, the entire frame of the glass can be rotated 180 degrees like a large dial, after which another click is heard. By this mechanism, the blue portcullis in Area 16.7 is raised. What makes this otherwise simple operation extremely dangerous is that the vestige is on its way to this chamber. It was alerted to the party's presence when they first entered the tower and has been moving toward its lair ever since. Assiraak engineered the hourglass mechanism precisely to take advantage of the territorial nature of the vestige. By forcing the party to spend an hour waiting to completely activate the mechanism, he ensures that the vestige will appear. In fact, the creature appears 1d4 turns after the hourglass is first flipped. The vestige makes its final approach from the southern side of the tower, flowing upward like a bizarre river of fog until it reaches the wide window opening in room 15.4. If all the party are down on the platform, they are not able to see it as it streams through the opening. The characters do notice it after it spreads out across the chamber's floor, then pours over the jagged edge of the fractured floor like an evil waterfall swollen with storm and spray. The direction of the fall is toward anyone on the platform. The whispering susurrus of its mental emanations extend before it like tendrils of mist. The vestige is a fearsome opponent, and the party's best strategy might be to draw the vestige off on a cat-and-mouse chase through the rest of the city. However, if the party is not able to rotate the hourglass within one turn after the sands have run out, they must start the process over again. Note that each time someone enters the Dreaming Tower, the vestige becomes aware of it and begins moving toward the tower, even if it had to break off pursuit of prey immediately before it. Stat block: The Vestige. Area 16, Spire of Black Ice. This magical construction is not an original tower within the city that waits, but is instead a monument created by Assiraak as a gateway from this demiplane to his fortress of conclusion. Unlike the rest of the towers in the city, the spire is a square and it rises to a sharp peak. More exceptionally, the spire is constructed completely of a darkly opaque ice. The frigid temperature of the city helps maintain this structure, but magic plays a greater part than engineering in keeping the construction upright, unmelted, and resistant to buckling under its own weight. The spire is mostly solid ice. Only one area along the bottom of the spire has been carved to allow the addition of chambers. Here, Assiraak has placed a few final pitfalls to guard the single pathway that allows explorers who prove their mettle to reach him in his Fortress of Conclusion. Area 16.1. From Bridge to Stair. Read or paraphrase the following when the party is still at some distance from the spire. Box text. A spire reaches up from the murky obscurity below like a single finger stretching vainly for purchase it will never discover. Unlike the surrounding towers, this one is perfectly smooth, almost like a very large but thin crystal. It rises to a bitter point far above your heads. End box text. Read or paraphrase the following when the party have approached to within 50 feet of the tower via the bridge. Box text. The bridge connecting the spire to the surrounding towers ends on a small landing built from the same slick black material as the tower itself. The landing has neither an entrance nor any other means of ingress. In fact, you cannot see a single window opening over all the visible surface of the spire. From the landing, it appears that a set of steep, narrow stairs has been cut into the outer wall of the spire, descending down the side of the monument towards some questionable destination below. The far limit of the stairs is lost around the side of the tower. End box text. Characters who investigate the platform and the side of the spire itself can easily determine that both are made of ice. Due to very cold conditions within the demiplane, the ice is not as slippery as it could be under normal conditions. However, it is still ice and therefore poses some hazard. Any actions or circumstances that might normally require a dexterity check incur an additional -2 penalty to any PC standing on the ice. If any conflict ensues, any PC who gives or receives a blow must make a dexterity check with a +1 bonus or fall down. If this occurs while on the stairs, any combatant has a 50% chance to pitch over the side. The ice of the spire, platform, and stair will melt normally if sufficient heat or flame is applied to it, although the magical nature of the tower causes the ice to magically regenerate at a rate of 1 cubic foot per turn until it has grown back to its original form. Note that any items, or unconscious characters, placed in a cavity thus created could wind up trapped beneath the regrown ice. The stair descends around the exterior of the tower in a very loose spiral, circling the spire again and again. Approximately 300 feet separate each loop of the spiral, making it difficult to see the other courses of the stair with normal vision in this uncertain light. Area 16.2. The Descent. Read or paraphrase the following when the party descends the exterior of the spire by way of the icy stair. Box text. The black line of the spire's side cuts the horizon both above and below you, differentiated only by its absolute darkness from the dim, unenthusiastic light flickering through the empty space beyond. The stairs are only about 3 feet wide, and no curb or rail guides you against a misstep. A slip would send you cartwheeling into the abyss that awaits below. End box text. PCs who defend by the way of the stairs will expect to be attacked in such an exposed area, and the denizens of the city that waits will not disappoint them. The entire trip down the seemingly endless spiral of the staircase takes about 1 hour. At the midpoint of the careful trip down the side, a murder of negative fundamentals sweeps out of a concealed hollow in the ice just as a randomly selected party member walks by, necessitating a surprise check on his or her part. If the character is surprised, he or she must make a wisdom check. Failure means that the startled PC instinctively jerks back before remembering the narrowness of the stair. This then requires a dexterity check with a -2 penalty, as noted above, for the rattled PC to avoid hurtling into the cold void. A character who makes the dexterity check tumbles 1d6 + 6 feet down the stairs instead, taking 1d4 points of damage. The negative fundamentals wheel and attack, trying to drive the party away from their nest. Stat block: 2d10 negative fundamentals. Area 16.3. The Base of the Spire. Box text. The stair finally spirals down to its end, where what passes for the floor of the city exists. Misty expanses of black-on-black vapor roiling away in every direction from the foundation of the spire of black ice. The last step of the stair is part of a larger landing that seems to skim just above the churning mists. The landing allows entry into a 20-foot by 20-foot horizontal shaft bored directly into the ice of the spire. To either side of the ice tunnel stand what appear to be crude ice sculptures of jackal-headed humanoids in robes. Centered over top of the passage is a large eye carved in bas relief. Only complete and utter darkness is discernible from within this ominous passage. End box text. Display illustration 42. This is the entrance into the interior of the spine. The images of the jackal men and eye may evoke memories of similar figures in the original Tomb of Horrors. These carvings possess no special powers or properties other than to mark the entrance to the spire. Unless noted differently, a light source only penetrates the ice to 1/5 of its normal radius. For example, a torch that normally illuminates to 30 feet only shows to 6 feet. Area 16.4. Zombie Gauntlet. Box text. The corridor presses in on you like an icy sheath. Suddenly revealed by your light source are dim shapes caught within the translucent walls, floor, and even ceiling. As you move closer, the shapes resolve to the point of recognizability. Humanoid forms are caught in the ice in a variety of orientations and contorted positions, like insects trapped in amber. End box text. Assiraak gathered a few dozen Moilian zombies from the city and froze them into place here in the corridor when he built the spire of black ice. The sound of their constant screaming can be faintly heard as the PCs draw near. Anyone approaching to within 20 feet of the zombies begins to feel the effect of their life-draining abilities. The Moilian zombies in the walls extend for 30 feet down the passage, creating a gauntlet of sorts for characters who wish to pass through. A PC may be tempted to run through with all possible speed in an effort to keep the effects of the life-leeching field to a minimum. Any PC with a movement rate of 6 or more can get through the area quickly enough to only require a single check. Unfortunately, Assiraak has provided for fools who rush in. 10 feet beyond the zombie gauntlet, the entire floor of the corridor is trapped for 20 feet. It only has the appearance of a solid floor. In fact, it is thin enough to break through with a sharp crack if more than 20 pounds of weight are applied to it. Anyone who breaks the ice can attempt a dexterity check to grab an edge of the hole as the character plunges through, but even if the check succeeds, the edge merely breaks off as well. Beneath, a 20 by 20 foot square shaft drops 40 feet into a bed of razor-sharp ice shards. Those falling take 4d6 points of falling damage, plus an additional 1d6 plus 5 points from the icy shards. The most insidious part of this trap is that there are more Moilian zombies frozen in the ice walls around the bottom of the shaft in the same manner as described above, except there are no zombies in the floor. From the bottom of the shaft to the height of 20 feet, the interior of the shaft is bathed in a Moilian zombie life-leeching field, all except for a 2-foot by 2-foot square at the exact center. For those who do not possess appropriate magic or quick-thinking friends, the bottom of the shaft will provide a quick death. The ice of the trapped floor and the icy shards at the bottom of the shaft will slowly regenerate with time. The Moilian zombies within the walls are normal in all respects, except that they are held within the ice and thus cannot move. If the PCs take it into their minds to chip or blast these creatures free, the zombies show their lack of gratitude by immediately moving to attack. None of the zombies possess anything other than the clothing on their backs. Stat block. Many Moilian zombies. Area 16.5. Slither and Slide. Box text. The corridor finally terminates at a concave wall of slick ice. Bored into the center of the wall is a 4-foot diameter shaft leading down at a 45-degree angle into darkness. Carved in bas relief around the circular hole is a clutch of writhing snakes. The serpents are entwined in a many-segmented circle. The eyes of the translucent snakes seem to gleam with a cold blue light. End box text. Approaching this wall in darkness shows that the eyes of the carved snakes do indeed gleam like the eyes of wild animals around a fire at night. The snakes are magically animated and lose their frozen immobility when any living being approaches within 20 feet of the wall. The ice snakes then begin to writhe, slither, and twist as though alive, but remain attached to the wall of ice. Each PC who moves within 3 feet of the wall is subject to 1d6 plus 3 snake attacks by the animated ice sculptures. The tails of the snakes remain within the ice of the wall. As these snakes are particularly vulnerable to fire-based attacks, a fireball targeted against the back wall might seem like a good idea. However, just as those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, people standing in ice tunnels should be careful where they throw fireballs. A fireball spell will collapse the corridor for a length of 60 feet back toward the entrance. Any PC caught in the area will be buried under tons of falling ice, suffering 10d10 plus 10 points of damage. The heat of the fireball fuses the collapsed section, making it impassable. Short of smashing through 60 feet of solid ice, the PCs must cool their heels for a full week before the tower's regenerative powers open up a passage large enough to wriggle through. It might be best to merely slay each of the snakes individually, or suck up one round's worth of attacks and jump into the ice slide. In a rare mood, Assiraak did not trap the ice slide. The slide itself is trap enough for unwary adventurers. See Area 16.6. Stat block: 40 ice snakes. Area 16.6. A cool welcome. Box text: the slide empties you out onto a platform that overhangs a vast pit of roiling black vapor. The platform is slick, very narrow, and has no railings or projections to grab onto as you skid across and toward the yawning abyss beyond. End box text. Characters who slowed their descent down the chute by using ropes, anchors, or some other means will emerge onto the platform safely. Characters who slid willy-nilly down the chute will plunge over the edge into the mists below unless they can halt their progress in some way. The slick ice of the platform offers no handholds. The only way for characters to stop themselves from hurtling over the edge into oblivion is to sink some handheld object into the ice. A hand axe, dagger, grappling hook, or even a short sword held in both hands might do. The character must make a successful attack roll. Given their speed and awkward position, assume the ice has an armor class of 2. If the attack succeeds, then the weapon bites into the ice and the character comes to a stop. Once stopped, a character can try to grab others who whiz by, giving a +2 bonus on the attack roll. If that attack roll fails, however, then both characters slide toward the edge, and each one has one last chance to sink an anchor into the ice. To make matters worse, a winter wight lurks out of sight of the chute against a wall on one side of the exit point, and advances to welcome travelers hanging on to life by their fingertips. Box text: as you dangle on the platform, grateful to have stopped your slide before it precipitated you into the misty abyss, an ice-sheathed skeleton claims your attention as it lurches calmly toward you. The black flames burning on the monster's skull swirl and flicker as it says in a hollow voice, "Ah, guests, it has been so long. Allow me to be the first to introduce you to the last chasm." End box text. The Winter Wight proceeds to act in the best movie villain fashion, stepping on the hands of anyone hanging on by their fingertips, kicking loose anchors or lifelines, and the like. In Melee, it tries to wrestle the party. Table 43 in the Dungeon Master Guide. A throw result allows it to toss a PC over the edge immediately. A save versus breath weapon allows the character to catch the edge, or the wight if the character prefers. If the wight gains a hold, the held PC will be tossed into the chasm in the next round if he or she can't wriggle loose. If the PCs succeed in slaying the Winter Wight, another will not be dispatched to this location for at least 1 year. This creature does not carry any valuables. The last chasm is the vaporous base of the city previously described. Those falling in pass into the negative energy plane. On the far side of the pit, a multicolored glow breaks through the darkness. To reach Area 16.7, the party must either use magical means to fly across the chasm, or contrive to traverse the ice walls or the 100-foot-high domed ceiling above. Stat block: Winter Wight. Area 16.7. The Phantom Flyer. Read or paraphrase the following text, modifying it appropriately if the party have activated some or all of the mechanisms necessary to lift the various portcullises. Box text. A 30 by 30 foot landing juts over the roiling black mist from the vast plain of ice constituting the eastern wall of this huge chamber. Flush with the ice face of the wall are a set of glowing red bars sealing off a 20-foot square opening. Behind these bars are a horizontal set of green glowing bars, and beyond these can be made out a final set of coldly glowing blue bars running vertically. In spite of all this light, shadows pool thickly in the void beyond. Above the bars, a message has been inscribed into the ice. Suddenly, you spy movement of the two wings, a horse-like back, and 2 black tentacles. End box text. The message in the ice is written in the PC's common tongue. It reads, "When the bars fall away, the flyer stands revealed. It can bring you my way by the route once concealed." When the party has activated all the mechanisms and the portcullises have withdrawn, display illustration 43. The triple-barred 20 by 20 foot gap in the ice is a holding cell of very strong magical properties. For all intents and purposes, nothing short of a wish, including various magical effects such as a teleport, can break through the bars, and each set of bars requires a separate wish to dispel. Those attempting to chip or bore through the ice from either side find that, from any direction other than straight ahead, the chamber is not there. It exists in its own pocket dimension, accessible only through the barred tunnel. The red bars open if the mechanism in Area 9.3 is properly activated, the green in Room 13.6, and the blue in 15.5. Golden manacles bonded to the wall inside the chamber immobilize the golem imprisoned within, and only the key retrieved from Area 5.6 will unlock them. Within the chamber is a phantom flyer, described in more detail in the Monstrous Compendium Annual Volume 2. This phantom flyer is large enough to carry 10 fully loaded human-sized creatures on its back, although player characters may be leery about climbing on board a creature larger than an elephant with tentacles sprouting where its eyes should be. Assiraak has specifically empowered this phantom flyer so that it can find its way unerringly from the city that waits to the Fortress of Conclusion, penetrating the interstitial planar boundaries as necessary. In fact, it can freely travel between any planes touched by the ethereal plane, making up to 3 trips a year. It has the further property of being able to enfold its riders in a habitable atmosphere regardless of its surroundings. When released from the ice grotto, it moves out onto the platform and stretches its wings like some grotesque butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. It then squats down in a manner suggestive of taking on riders, but it will not speak. If the party mounts up, they can verbally command it to grab an additional object with its tentacles. It will wait for some sort of command such as go or take us to Assiraak. Following such a command, it bears the party aloft in the chamber, then dives into the roiling vapor, marking the boundary of this demiplane. See the box text at the beginning of the Fortress of Conclusion section for a description of the trip. Those who do not ride on, or are not carried by, the Phantom Flyer cannot find their way to the incomprehensibly vast negative energy plane to the fortress's single entrance. Stat block: Phantom Flyer. The negative energy plane. A living being thrust into the great void fares about as well as a hot poker dropped into a barrel of crushed ice. The heat and life are drawn forth into the surrounding medium quickly and without compromise. The negative energy plane is composed of an active absence of light, sound, energy, and life. It is the polar opposite of the positive energy plane. There, all things have their beginnings. Here, all things end, except those creatures who are the very antithesis of life itself, the undead. As described in the Planescape campaign setting, survival on this plane is difficult at best. The desire to move suffices to propel one through this plane of omission. However, with nothing to steer by and no landmarks for guidance, travelers to this plane usually perish before they can reach any destination. While they remain on the back of the Phantom Flyer, the party is safe, but any character who jumps or falls from this cocoon of safety faces dire peril indeed. There is, of course, no air to breathe. Even worse, life energy is drained away from living creatures at a rate of 2d6 hit points every round. This direct hit point loss is the source of the level and ability draining powers often possessed by undead tied to this plane. When a traveler's hit point total reaches 0, he or she perishes for good. No resurrection is possible by any means, and the creature's physical husk is filled with the darkling power of unlife. Those who are protected by a negative plane protection spell are immune to the draining effects while the spell lasts, but breathing is still a problem without further magical assistance. Any item with a magical bonus loses 2 pluses on this plane if the item was forged on the prime material plane. Those who are sufficiently protected from the baneful effects of this plane could conceivably cast spells. They will find that their conjuration, summoning spells only reach the planes of ash, dust, vacuum, and salt. Spells that cause damage inflict the maximum possible amount, while healing spells do the absolute minimum. Food, water, or walls, or other matter, created via magic here, crumble to less than dust in a single round. End of Part 3, to be concluded in Part 4, The Fortress of Conclusion.